Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of FNtasia podcast. We are back here, episode 2. It feels good. It feels good. We got episode 1 out last week. It was a lot of fun. We got some great feedback. People seem to be enjoying it. Some updates for you guys in terms of where we're at. Oh, I'm hearing myself twice. Yeah, I had the YouTube link up.
Average man.
Average host.
Rookies.
I'm not too good at this. I'm leaving it. Shayo and Bala used to handle the host, and not me.
Yeah. By episode 100, you'll be great at it.
Yeah. Give me a couple episodes, I'll get there. But quick updates for people who are wondering. So the podcast is available now on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I know a lot of people said they, like to listen to things like this when they're out and about on their way to school, in school. Probably shouldn't listen to it in school, but wherever you want to listen to it, it is now available on Apple and Spotify. Also up on YouTube as well. So yeah, the plan is, for people wondering, so on twitch.tv/112k today for Twitch. Next week will be on Harry's Twitch. So I'll drop a link for that at the end of the show. But we're rotating around on Twitch. YouTube though, if you're ever confused, it is always live on YouTube as well. So that can make it easy for you. But yeah, enough boring stuff. My friends, how are you today? So we have a lineup of Coach Harry, the big dog, Reese Hub, and the wonderful Somebody's Gone. Boop is not available this week. Boop is feeling a bit ill, so some prayers for Boop. Hopefully he gets well soon. But I guess we'll start off with the wonderful NA man himself. Somebody's Gone. How you doing, mate? Welcome to the show.
What's good? Thanks for having me on. I know it might be blasphemy to have a different opinion from NA coming in here, but you guys kind of need it. I feel like after the last episode, so I'm here to step in for you boys.
Thank you. What would we do without you?
Mr.
Coach Harry? Yeah, probably, yeah. Mr. Harry, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good. Yeah, already 1 week into FNCS. It feels like it just comes up straight away, and then FNCS is gone for most people within 2 weeks. It's just it's been good, really busy with a lot of coaching stuff, but no, it's all been fun. It's all been good.
Don't think I'm letting you off, mate. We know you played FNCS. Bro's here like, just a bit of coaching.
Coaching.
How did it go, mate? You played?
It went fine. I mean, if anyone else apart from me played with Aiden, they probably would have qualified, but it was still fun. I mean, yeah, I think this week we probably got in the bag. Few changes here or there. Stop trying to go for side jumps on bad FPS with my bad PC and pulling to full damage every game. Probably will be fine.
The PC was the problem.
Yeah, it's blame the PC. Blame the PC. It's fine. It's fine.
But no, the servers too.
Yeah, the server's not good. But no, it was good fun. I think first tournament I properly played in a long time, like duo tournament, probably all the way back to I think the first UFNCS was the last duo tournament I played, so a lot of fun. I finally getting to play a tournament. It makes you realize why so many people compete. For actually competing in it and going through the motions, winning games, having bad games, winning off spawn, all of these things. You just go through the motion. You understand why Fortnite has so many players who play every single week. It is so much fun.
I do have to know though, before we move on, how did you scam like an actual FNCS grand finalist in Aiden?
He asked me to play.
He asked you.
He asked me to play.
Okay.
So he obviously quit like a year ago, and then he started playing this season for fun with his IRL friends in pubs and stuff. So then he was just like, "Oh, do you want to just play FNCS for fun?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." And then he basically forced me to stream it. So everyone got to see everyone got to see me throw every game. But no, it was good fun. I actually enjoyed it a lot. And yeah, I think we can get round 3 this week. I think round 3 is pretty achievable. I think not having to fight too much and anything like that. I think it's pretty achievable for the most part.
Okay, well, you're not the only FNCS competitor in our midst here. We have the big dog playing with Best Jesus this week. Reese boy, tell me, man, how you doing and how did FNCS go?
Firstly, I'm awesome. I think I'm going to clarify the big dog for anyone who didn't listen last week. I put it as a joke. It was there when I opened up this time. It was still there, and I just thought I'm just going to stick with it. I had this vision, right? I had this vision when we started the pod, and I was like, imagine we go to and do an in-person podcast at one point, in the future at some point, and you're out hosting. You're opening the show. And for any audio listeners or people who don't know how tall Levin is, he's 6'8". He's a large gentleman, right? And I have this vision of him coming out on stage and being like, and here comes the big dog, and then I walk out, and it's like people were expecting some like 7-foot WWE giant,
like a
and then I just come
monster.
out in comparison. So I might end up sticking with a joke. We'll see next week if my cookie's clear or not, and I just change it back to resub. But yeah, on a good note, I'm doing awesome. I was indeed playing FNCS, and we came 2 points away from qualifying out of Opens.
That's actually close.
Because yeah, I mean we were like 100 placements away, but it was also like the worst we've ever played, I think, because like almost every other tournament, like Joe Cash Cups, performance evals, all are like around top 1K or something like that. So just to miss out on top 2K is kind of annoying. But I want to see if I can present how I died in my final game. This is going to be a test in case anyone's wondering. So if something massively goes wrong, I apologize straight away. I immediately can't find the file on my screen, so it's already wraps. Basically, I got pieced up by 2 trees in my final game.
Oh, the trees. It was the trees this time.
It was. Yeah. So I got fully beamed while rotating an endgame. Boxed up, needed to heal, and had 20 HP. And in the 2 boxes I created was 2 trees, the best duo in the lobby, I think. And I was like, the storm caught up. And I'm trying to edit out my box, and I was like, "Oh, these trees they're just in the way." And then I just had to pop a med kit in Storm as DJ solo clutched the rest of the end game. Well, I'm just sitting back, Storm dying out of it. And then we didn't qual because of that. So lots of milks all around, but tomorrow will be better.
I noticed whenever I do tune in, there is a lot of DJ solo clutching going on.
Yeah.
Is there a bit of a pattern going on here?
No, not so much. This week, absolutely. No doubt. I've recorded every single tournament, and I plan to make some video of it. We have to do well at some point in order for me to make a video of it. So
yeah.
Fingers crossed here.
Tides in the chat said new creative map idea 1v1 piece control.
Add that to the practice hub. Add it to the practice hub.
Shut up. Add it to the practice hub, man. For real.
Okay, I'll get it on. So yeah, not necessarily. I milked a lot in endgame, and he milked a lot in fights that time. Most of the time, we're usually even on milkage, to be honest with you. But we played one endgame together. I know that was the only endgame we played together. And the other 2 he soloed because I just died early as well. So
wait, how did you come 2000 with one end game together?
Because he solo clutched the other 2 other end games.
Okay.
So he put in a shift. He put in a shift in those end games. I did not. Yeah. The other tournament's been good, but that one was pretty bad. So tomorrow, as long as I just play with at least 7 IQ, I should be fine. That's more
than double what you usually got.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying, man. Yeah.
Well, I think I'm looking forward to next week's updates on how FNCS went. But I think before we dive into how FNCS went for the rest of the Fortnite world, because we will jump into that because a lot happened. Obviously, it's whenever there's FNCS, there's a lot going on. We got a big announcement before FNCS started from ESL Fortnite. We haven't heard anything from ESL Fortnite in a long time. Last time we really heard from them was like, it wasn't actually Katowice LAN, because I remember they did like these online events like 3-4 years ago or something that were like terribly ran. But I don't know if anyone even remembers those, but I do remember they had a couple in EU. They came out. Yeah. You remember them? You guys remember them?
They were like ESL in Fortnite has given themselves a reputation of being one of the worst companies to host any tournament ever, purely based on the way they have ran all of those. Like there was, I remember one, I think it was like there was 6 games, but they only ran on the hour every hour. So it was like there was like a 35-minute break between every single game, and then the games were like horrifically bad anyway. So you had players locked in for like 6 hours straight away. And the thing is, like ESL is obviously good in other avenues and other sports, and other esports, and other titles. So like I'm sure by the time it comes to we have like World Cup, they will have at least some people from Fortnite on their roster so that they host a good tournament. But historically, that's not really been the case.
Well, they are trying to change that, and that's what we're going to get into, because they announced a new competition, a new sort of UEFN-based competition system, which at least initially sparked a lot of excitement. I'll get the tweet up here. They said, the stage is set, the players are here. ESL featuring Fortnite offers a brand new game mode to compete in, built in UEFN. Join now, and they linked the map code there. And didn't have much response. It was just like a bunch of orgs replying. Or they did, but
Oh, there's 200. There's 200 comments.
yeah,
There,
there's 200.
yeah.
I'm not going to press show more because it's Twitter. And, you know,
yeah.
But essentially, what ended up happening was a lot of people were like, hold on a minute. Like, what is this? Like, you know, creative. And I instantly jumped into it. And essentially, the map that they dropped was this, like, capture the flag map. And they're basically saying that they're going to run a bunch of competitions for this thing. I think they're using Faceit because obviously ESL, you know, Faceit are one and the same company, so they're using Faceit to like run these tournaments. And anybody that has experience in a game like CS knows, like, you know, Faceit's a great system. It's like the best system for, you know, playing tournaments and competitive modes, etc., etc. And so initially, a bunch of excitement, like, okay, like, what, you know, this is fresh, this is new. Instantly, people start linking it to the Esports World Cup that's happening in the summer, right? Because we know ESL are linked with EFG, who, you know, are behind Gamers 8 and the whole Esports World Cup. And I want to get everyone's initial thoughts on it. I jumped in. I played a bit of Capture the Flag. It's funny because when it dropped, obviously all the pros were like instantly jumping in, right? And so like I think like the second game I got into, I was in with like Trippin and like and a couple other guys. I think Elocrats was in there as well. So, you know, everybody was jumping in to get a feel for it. But what did everyone make of it, you know, of their sort of announcements and them running these UEFN competitions?
Yeah, so I played a little bit as well. I did the exact same. Played a bit of public matches. And to be honest, it's not that bad. Like, would it get a bit boring if you have to, you know, play it over and over and over again? Yeah, probably. It is very basic. It's a 4v4 on a very small map with small amount of classes in the Capture the Flag, which is a very basic game mode. And, you know, I don't think there's a lot. There will be obviously strategy towards it, but it won't be that much. What I'm more excited about is the new game modes they might release in the future. You know, they say coming April 18th. So, well, coming today, I think. Yeah, today. Hardpoint's coming out for another new game mode they're releasing. And then also in the future, they're doing Shrink and Zone, which I assume is probably going to be some form of Zone Wars, right? And I don't think this is a bad way to go about it, to have like, from what it sounds like, they can't really run a Battle Royale because of Blast. They can't run it in Fortnite, in just like Battle Royale, whatever. So I think
sure that's also not true.
You sure?
Yeah. Almost definitely, yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
I don't know how much I can say on that, but I don't think that's true at all.
Well, okay. I was gonna get to that in a bit because there was some like tweets and stuff from different people around that. So we'll get to that. But yeah, continue.
But I don't think it's a bad idea to have ESL run a bunch of creative different modes, right? If we were only going to have Capture the Flag and it was going to be Capture the Flag and this is what they were going to run for a year's time, it'd be very boring. It'd become very repetitive, very boring. But having these new exciting, new game modes, exciting, you know, maybe not, but new game modes to run, I don't know if that's necessarily that bad. I think it's good to have on the side, especially when, you know, FNCS is so short. It gives a little bit extra competition to a couple of four players to play in. I don't see that much downside towards it, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Like, I don't really think there's any downside to it, but like my question is, if it wasn't inferred that this was going to be like a multi-million-dollar prize pool for the World Cup later on, would anyone actually play these maps? And I think the answer is no. Like, I don't think anyone's going in to go play Capture the Flag. There were Capture the Flag maps already made. There's some great Zone Wars maps. Hardpoint, I haven't really seen that be popular, but there probably is some kind of similar style map. But like, those aren't played by the top competitors. And I think the only reason that we're seeing people play these maps is, one, orgs are probably getting paid to promote them, because we saw the announcement of, oh, here's a couple of orgs that are now with the ESL Fortnite, allegedly not getting direct spots in the Esports World Cup, but we'll see when that roster comes out whether or not that's true. And then, you know, you get top pros playing it, you get top orgs promoting it. Yes, people will play it, but you guys are probably all the same. No one really cares about another game mode within Fortnite, right? We've seen Capture the Flag. It's in Halo. It's in Call of Duty. Name the other games that have all these similar type of games. And yeah, they're good, but like, it's not Fortnite. And I think the reason I love Fortnite is because the Battle Royale has so much depth to it. And inherently, someone's going to find ways to cheese these maps. They're going to just sit there, hold corners, and the gameplay style, we've seen it with Search and Destroy previously, is not fit for Fortnite. So I would like it to work. I think it's cool. I have no problems with the styles trying it out, but at the same time, I don't think anyone would actually play if there wasn't like that piece in the back of everybody's mind that there's going to be millions of dollars attached to this at the end.
That's fair.
I think that's also fine though, in a sense, because I think the biggest issue will these maps be created well, and will they have any form of longevity and, as you said, cheesability as well? Because, if you think about the Call of Duties, the Halos, the games that have had Capture the Flags, these similar 4v4 style maps for a long time, obviously they're professional game developers who spend a significant amount of time developing the games, and then in Call of Duty's case, just copy and paste that for 20 years on every single game afterwards, right?
Yeah.
But I haven't jumped into the map, so this is a little bit of conjecture, but how well are they designed from a 4v4 perspective? Like, who are the map creators doing it? Like, what level of thought process has gone into it? Because I would just baseline assume that it's probably less than something like a Counter-Strike map in terms of angles, peaks, all of this kind of stuff. Again, pure guess on that side.
So
yeah.
Can I butt in there? So
yeah.
For context on that, I think the map was made by 4 Creative, who are a UFN company who I sort of know them quite well from like meeting their team at Unreal Fest. And like they've made like a bunch of really successful maps. Like they've got a lot of like really great, activations they've done in the past. And I was told beforehand, I won't say who, just to keep them anonymous or whatever, but I was told beforehand that they had players testing the map through the process. So like they made this map in collaboration with like some of the top pros. Like I know some of the people who were involved in playing it beforehand. And so like it did seem like they tried their best at least to make sure that like this was something that, the top level Fortnite players who eventually would be playing it would find palatable and enjoyable. Even with that being said, I still have the same worries because again, it's like that's still different to a game like Call of Duty and when they're making a map for the same purpose, right? Like it's and with the limitations of UEFN and whatnot, like it's just never gonna be that good, right?
Yeah, agreed. And I think one of the good things about having it in UEFN is the fact that if something sucks, you can just change it. That will be one of the beautiful things I think about this. And again, the continual iterations, all of these different things. I think that's great. I think, to be honest, as long as the maps end up being good, the fact that they're only there and only playable or interesting because they're in a tournament isn't necessarily that much of a bad thing. So if you think about, say, ESL as a company and trying to make esports profitable, how many times have you heard a conversation about that in any esport ever? And it just obviously it's just giggleable most of the time. Ignore the fact that esports World Cup is just an absolute tax dump, but and other things. But think about most production companies trying to do something like this. Having their own map that people are forced to play year round or months round is at least revenue generated back for them in order to help produce in a certain ecosystem. So I think like whether or not the map is good or interesting is second to that. Obviously, it should be good and it should be fun. But if it's a potential at some sort of production company being able to create a profitable system that has ranks and all these other things, I think that's a definite good step forward. Maybe the attempt fails, maybe it doesn't, but I think the idea is good.
Yeah, my biggest issue, is as we did with World Cup, is do with cheaters, right? When things are now in creative and we're doing qualifiers for World Cup through creative, cheating is a lot easier. It's a lot easier to get away with cheating. It's a lot easier to qualify and then just do bad at World Cup and just say, "Oh, I'm an onliner. I didn't perform well. It's my first time on a LAN." So that would be my biggest worry about this is the whole cheating thing. Even last Esports World Cup, we had the whole scandal with cheaters and things like this. So I don't think this is going to be any different. If anything, it's just going to be even more so because you're going to have squads of 4 who are all cheating, who are just qualifying, and you're just like, well, we can ban them, but we have no solid proof they're actually cheating or not. So it's just an awkward thing.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I think in particular, if you know anything about the wagering scene, this is already a massive issue. Like generally, creative. I don't know if it's as easy to get banned in creative as it is in Battle Royale. I'm not entirely sure how that works, but I know there's like a massive history of people in wagers cheating already, and this is just another form of that. If you have qualifiers doing creative, I do kind of agree that's slightly worrying, but again, it's that is what it is. I still imagine mostly pros will qualify through regardless.
Yeah. My sort of stance on the whole thing was similar to you, Reese, in that like there was an element of excitement of if this is, you know, a sign of what people are going to try for the future, then like if we're being as ambitious as possible, this could be great.
Yeah.
Right. And I sort of made a tweet talking about it where I sort of highlighted the fact that I believe I've seen some, and I don't know why I feel like I've seen this, but I believe I saw somewhere that eventually, right, Epic plan on like building the BR mode through UEFN, right?
Yeah.
That's true,
Which says to me that they're looking to, you know, improve the UEFN, and we know already that they're looking to do that and unlock more tools and make it better so people can make better modes, because you know the reality of what people make now, it can't really compete with BR when it comes to a mode that turns into like a competitive mode that, you know, has loads of people consistently playing and coming back to non-stop. If that is the future, then what is stopping, you know, somebody in the future from coming out like a TO, like an ESL or whoever, from coming out and really making like a comp mode that like runs almost alongside FNCS? And so you have FNCS that's like the main BR mode that, you know, Epic run, but you also have this really interesting tournament series that like people genuinely are excited for. Like that's great for the future of comp, right? Especially since like, again, it's like that TO has incentive because the revenue they're making from UEFN, if loads of people playing it consistently, is great. Players want to play it because of the big prize pools, etc., etc. Cool. Now, when we look at ESL and what this iteration of it is, I think it is almost, if we're talking about like World Cup syndrome, when it's like when we're talking about cheaters, I'd say I'd compare it to World Cup syndrome when we're talking about the amount of money that will be on the line for the esports World Cup is incentive enough to make a lot of people play this thing. And I've already seen it where there's a lot of pro players who are actively like scrimming this. Like they are, like I'm seeing tweets nonstop from like pros from all over saying, hey, 4v4 practice, you know, like, so people are clearly getting their squads together, people are getting their teams together. Obviously we saw with the esports World Cup, they announced the whole thing of like the club system again that they're bringing back, right? So there's going to be a lot of orgs picking up players for these events, right? And so people already starting to think about how these rosters work in terms of, okay, who are we going to play with so we get picked up? All these things. I don't think, from playing it, my experience playing it so far, I don't think this is something that is like crazy to play. Like it was cool. I'd probably say that it's better than like a lot of the, you know, capture the flag maps that are out there, the ones I've played at least. Like again, like you can see that they've put a lot of effort into this. I don't think we're at the stage in Fortnite where anything is going to compete with BR when it comes to just like being a comp mode that people enjoy. And I agree with what you were saying, SPG, where it's like if they're not dumping crazy amounts of money, if that's not like implied, then I don't think people are as bothered about this. It was funny because I think they have already ran like a tournament,
There's
like
one
a
this
FACEIT tournament.
weekend.
There's something that they've already run. And I did see, I forgot who it was. I think it was like me, Bloomy, and Boop we were talking about, and like we were like calculating like the FACEIT points because they're giving away FACEIT points for like the smaller ESL ones that they're doing for Get the World Cup. And it was like the FACEIT points you get for winning this tournament, it's like the equivalent of like $5. It's like nothing, like in terms of just like you know, converting it and how much money. So in terms of like just the smaller ones that they're already running and that they're planning on running, again, it's like there's not really much in it, especially when you compare to what people are used to when it comes to comp Fortnite. So the fact that people are lining up to play is because, again, there's the assumption of this is going to lead to something at the Esports World Cup. From my understanding, like, because a lot of people said, nah, we don't know. They've not actually said officially. I still don't think they've said officially that that is what's going to be happening at the World Cup. From the people I've spoken to, it seems like that's what is going to happen. And I don't know how that actually pans out and what they're going to do in terms of like how the road to actually getting or whatever. But my understanding at least is that that is what seems like it's going to be happening. I think it's cool. I'm interested to see how it goes if people are interested in watching it. Because at the end of the day, when there's big money on the line, people are always going to be down to play it and people will get hyped and have fun. But for the people watching it, for the audience, for us, right? Because I don't think any of us are going to be, competing in Saudi
Oh,
Arabia
no.
for this
It
thing.
depends how tomorrow goes,
Yeah.
guys. You know?
Hey, true. For the people who are watching it,
Are there
I'm
trees on the
interested
map?
to see if there's trees and resub is not involved. I'm interested to see how people actually feel about watching it and experiencing that, because I don't anticipate it being like something that people are very excited for outside of just the novelty of, oh, there's like loads of money on the line for this tournament and we have familiar faces of pros in there. And that to me would be a shame, but I think it's just what is likely to happen right now.
Yeah.
Well, would any of you watch it? Like, say there was a $1,000 tournament and all the top pros played. Would any of you guys turn it on?
No.
I'd watch it. I'd watch it because if top pros were playing, if you knew top pro, like it was guaranteed that top pros were going to play, I'd find it interesting to see top pro squads play and in a certain map, because squads is fun in my eyes. But I think that if it was like, it wasn't guaranteed, it's just here's a tournament, the only person streaming it is the organizers, I wouldn't watch that. No, if it wasn't a guarantee that pros were going to play it.
Would you only watch it because it's a map out that is going to the Fortnite World Cup? Or if it was just a map that was like a 4v4 capture flag 1K tournament that meant nothing after that, like, is that then really pulling your interest? Because now it's like, oh, see who's doing good, what there's maybe early strats on this map and all that kind of stuff. Because honestly,
I don't know. It's hard because my enjoyment, a lot of my enjoyment does come from like watching pros and seeing what they think about, the game when it comes to Battle Royale, how they play, what they think about it, right? When it comes to a random 1K map, it also depends on like if there was more tournaments after, not maybe World Cup. It feels like 1K tournaments all the time or whatever. If it was a one-off, then no, I wouldn't watch it.
And I think because there's a lot of tournaments that are just like 1K, 2K cups, and it's like it's not, and it's already in good modes, whether it's Battle Royale, whether it's with players I know, players I don't, whether it's in creative, where it is. And it's like I'm already not sitting down to watch all of those. So if it's because Esports World Cup's coming up, this is the game mode, I might jump in to see what it's like, watch it, see like just how it plays out. Outside of that, like probably not. Also, just I think begs the question: why are a lot of these maps just like established game modes in Fortnite, like 4v4 Zone Wars? Obviously you said there's potential there.
Yeah.
Why are they not all more like established versions of that? Because that also then has more appeal to just people just loading into the map and playing it.
Yeah. Because that's always been one of the things, right? Like when search and destroy modes were really trending and there was a bunch of tournaments on that, right? Like people are like, this is cool, but it's not Fortnite. And I think it's hard to make people stick with the mode when it's not. Whereas like you're saying, if it is something that people are more familiar with, then is there like an element of, this is actually kind of exciting. I always it's funny because like my this is like a weird example that's just popped to my mind, but I used to always say with like veganism, wait, let me land.
Hold on.
Let me land. I always thought it was like weird how with like the whole thing of veganism, they're like obsessed with just like making things that people like they're obsessed with like making things that people already have, right? Like, so vegan this, vegan that, vegan whatever. And a lot of the time it's just not that at all, right? It's like vegan cheese or something. I think vegan cheese actually, I don't know if it's good or not, I can't remember, but it's like that's a vegan cheese. Like, this isn't cheese though. It's like, it's just not cheese, So like, why don't you just like let it be something else? I think that's like the opposite here, where like a lot of these people.
Wait, hold on.
Listen. Let me land. I feel like I've explained this in a weird way, but a lot of like these people come in and instead of like trying to give people like the reason why they do that with the vegan stuff is because they want people to identify with it. Because if they just came out and called this new vegan cheese, if they called it whatever, like people be like, what the hell is that? But they call it vegan cheese because they want people to know like this is just cheese but a vegan take on it. But with these like Fortnite modes and like maps and people coming in, it's like they come in and they're just giving people, they're giving the Fortnite community something that's completely different, that isn't like already something within Fortnite. And it's like, well, hold on a minute, don't give us like Call of Duty capture the flag but in Fortnite. Give us like a good tournament based around Zone Wars, because all Fortnite players play Zone Wars, right? Like
vegan Zone Wars.
Vegan Zone Wars.
Give us vegan Zone Wars. Don't give us vegan, capture. I don't know what that is. I'm a Fortnite player. I don't know what that is. I don't know what hardpoint is. I'm a Fortnite player, and that doesn't mean I don't think you can't try and invent new things and bring new things in. But I think you're giving yourself a harder task by not already giving people something that's like palatable to their needs already. And so yeah, that was my long-winded way of sort of saying that.
Well, do you think vegans will play the map then? Just like, so throwing out your entire analogy, if say the shrinking zones mode that they're going to put out isn't actually a building map, it's like hardpoint, capture the flag, and they're not builds, are we going to see pros from like a Halo, for example? Because it's very similar as far as like the gunplay goes. They're already established in understanding how this works. They just have to figure out how Fortnite guns work. And that would be like the one skill gap. So if there's not building whatsoever, do you think we'll see pros from other games attempt to jump into this knowing that there's a ton of money?
Honestly, I'd think it'd be stupid not to. I think I don't necessarily, right now as it stands, I don't think we would, like, just because I feel like people probably aren't actually that aware. Yeah. But if it was me, now this is a great point now that you made, because the first thing I'm doing if they announce that shit and it's 0 builds, I'm hitting up the best Call of Duty players in the world. I'm saying, yo, there is some free money on the line, guys. Like, if you're willing to give me a little fee for setting you up, then do you know what I mean? I'll let you know everything you need to know about Fortnite. But no, that's a great point. Yeah, why not? Like, again, 0, there's a lot of, like, I remember you'd see back when, you know, Fortnite was like as mainstream as it possibly was, right? And even during OG, you'd see it a lot, OG season. You see like pros from other games like play Fortnite. Yeah. And like outside of the building, they're incredible. You know, it's like, does anyone remember like when XQC would play a bunch, right? And XQC's not been like a pro Overwatch player for a long time. When XQC would play Fortnite, he was actually low-key good because his aim's just insane, right? And so like you give him a mode that's like similar to something he's played and it's just in Fortnite. Why couldn't he play one of these events and maybe make something out of it, right? So yeah, I'd love to see people from other games come in. I think that would only be a positive in terms of like growing these communities and actually making something that maybe is less palatable for like the core Fortnite comp audience more palatable to a wider audience.
Yeah, I mean, I was just looking quickly at the player count or the people signed up for the smaller ESL tournaments, right? I'll run through the regions and how many players are signed up. To take it into consideration, these start tomorrow. So this is a day before. So on Middle East, there's 1 team out of 64 signed up. On Europe, there's 37 out of 64. On NA, there's 8 out of 64. In Asia, there's 0. So with these tournaments running, it's like
who's queued up for Asia with me?
Yeah, who's running up for Asia? But this is the problem. It's like, first of all, it's on FNCS weekend, so this doesn't make sense for basically anyone to play, right? But second of all, it's like, I don't know if they've done the best way of marketing it to anyone apart from, you know, comp Twitter, because comp Twitter is just such a small amount of the competitive scene. It feels like they're missing so many different players who could be playing, because when you tweet something like, oh, it's inferred that it's going towards World Cup, you expect more than average of like 50 players to be playing at a time. You're probably like, oh my God, there's a chance for World Cup. You're expecting, you know, hundreds of players on all regions to be wanting to play to have a chance of qualifying. But it feels like no one really knows apart from the competitive Twitter, and even the smaller minority who, even though it's inferred that it's going to World Cup, a lot might not even know that. So I don't know. I think, I think, as you said, like about the other pros, like, again, like that's another thing. It's like if other communities knew that this stuff was coming, like, and there was going to be loads of different 0 build game modes, of course they, you know, happy to jump over and make easy money. But at the end of the day, I don't think really anyone knows about it apart from Twitter.
Yeah, if no one from Fortnite knows, how are people from other games?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's a good point, though. Point.
I mean, the running alongside FNCS thing is just like a big miss. That's like an obvious like red flag of just like anyone could have told you people aren't going to sign up.
Well, that's the thing that kind of worries me about this, is because combine the two factors. Firstly, non-Fortnite related game modes alongside this like bad scheduling of this first tournament. Maybe it's just a test, maybe whatever, that's fine. But that just shows me that their ESL probably are not that invested in Fortnite, or they don't have that many people who are invested in Fortnite competitively, at least working with them or telling them that. Because if you were anyone literally from the Fortnite scene and they spoke to you, you would be like, oh, don't do it this weekend, FNCS is there. You know, that's common sense straight away. So that's kind of a red flag to me that they probably don't have too many people from Fortnite with specific experience in competitive to tell them, hey, maybe make a map that fits these kind of criteria. And if you want to capture the flag, maybe you can make elements of it in his own wars. By the way, I had a really good idea while we're talking about that, but I'll think about it later. And then you look at like other modes of like, well, they don't know scheduling, they don't know this. And a lot of that stuff's just kind of concerning.
Yeah. No, I think it's a great point. Look, I'm curious about how the future of this looks. But yeah, at the moment, I think there's a lot of things that were, poorly sort of planned. Before we move on, there was a thing I said I was going to bring up. I'll bring up the tweet here. Jake Lucky tweeted about the whole thing happening, and the one and only esports connoisseur himself, Slasher, responded. This is in response to Blast exclusivity deal with Epic for competitive Fortnite BR, which was going to be ESLs until last minute. And then like someone from ESL actually responded saying we've actually been looking at UEFN for a long time. So I think he's trying to insinuate that like this isn't a response to anything to do with Blast. Like this is just something we've been looking into for a long time anyway. I know Reese, you said like earlier you were like, I don't think that's true at all. But yeah, I don't know if you had anything else to add.
Yeah, I don't know much you can say because I don't want to, I don't know. There are people who've told me that I don't know is public knowledge, but I basically know exclusivity deal is definitely not the right way to word that at all. There's not an exclusivity deal with Blast so that other people can't host battle royale tournaments. That's just not true. I think one of the main issues really is that there's not a mode you can host them in because you'd have to host the scrims or your tournament in pubs, which is already a problem. But yeah, there's not an exclusivity deal on that front. There's obviously a deal between Blast, but that's not basically how it works.
I already didn't think that was true just because didn't last week we got like a massive women only LAN event announced, and I was like, well, that wouldn't work if there was. Again, maybe there's more nuance to it, but yeah, I already didn't think, but I thought, it'd be interesting to know. Anyone have any other thoughts on esports? World Cup, UEFN potential, UEFN, ESL. Do we cover everything? I think.
Yeah, I think we nailed it.
We got through pretty much everything. All right then. Well, okay. Moving on then. Let's talk about FNCS now because that's what a lot of people are interested in. FNCS started up this weekend or last weekend, I should say. Qualifier 1. It feels like I feel like it's been a long preseason, but I guess it wasn't that long. It's like the typical like
long,
right?
Long, bro. It's been the shortest gap between FNCS
I know.
ever.
I don't know why it just felt so long to me. I don't know. But it wasn't that long. We are right back into the swing of FNCS, and I thought the best way or one of the best ways we could cover FNCS, especially just because it's like the nature of this format means it's. Like the leaderboard doesn't really. I don't really give a fuck about the leaderboard. I'll be real. Like I don't really care. Like we could go through the leaderboard and be like, "Oh, this team came first, second." And I don't. It's just not too interesting with the nature of this format. So I thought the best way to cover it would be through the good, the bad, and the ugly. And so, people who maybe don't understand what that means and what that is, essentially, we'll go around the panel. And each person will say something that they thought was good about FNCS Qualifier 1. Could be anything. It could be a certain player's performance. It could be something to do with the format. It could be something to do with anything in the realms of FNCS is on the cards here. And we'll do the same with something they thought was bad this week, And then we'll go around and we'll talk about something that we thought was ugly. And ugly is for something that is really just like a bad look. It's really just terrible, Like, it's not bad. It's just terrible. And I'm sure there'll be some interesting things there we dive into. So, without further ado, let's jump right into it. Good. When it comes to good, I'm going to come to you first, Mr. Harry, Mr. Coach Harry. What was something about FNCS this week that you felt was good?
I can't believe I'm going to say it, but Mongraal and Savage. I think if anyone has been watching my streams, from basically since I've started back up streaming, I have been called a Mongraal and Savage hater because at the end, because I just like anyone asks, are they going to qual grands? How are they doing? You look at them at the start of the season, they look hopeless. Basically, they were not even doing anything remotely good at all. And then you watch them in this week's FNCS, you watch them in the Performance Cup this week as well. They look legit. They actually look legit. They look like a really, really good team with a decently solid early game plan they can get forecasts very consistently from their spot. It seems like the way that forecast by Snooty is playing out now, it seems like Mongraal and Savage's spot is the one that is more consistent to get it out of any of the spots, even though it's the furthest away because of how quick it is to loot. And they look good. They look really good. And I am, Blood X and Sansa in chat. Blood is doing God's work. He really, really is. Like you listen to Blood X, you listen to how strict and vocal he is the massive part. I'm not going to say that if Mongraal and Savage without BloodX, they wouldn't be anything like this at all. You know, I don't think they would probably have even qualified to round 4, if I'm honest. But you watch them play with BloodX in their ear, they look like a really good team. The only worry I have is if they qualify to Grands, if BloodX is still going to live coach them, because if they're not live coached by BloodX, they're a completely different team. But at this moment in time, they're a legit team. They are a contender to do well this FNCS. I think they look really good.
Yeah, they are. So from what I've seen of them, because during FNCS it's harder for me to watch like their POV, because you know when you're on the broadcast we're watching that. But when I've heard the comms, like there's end games where like Blood is calling everything. Like he is like genuinely like it's Blood's brain and Mongraal's body.
Yeah.
like literally like there's end games I'm watching where he is telling them like he'll be like, look up now, okay, wait, drop them now, shoot deep, don't take it now, rotate, okay, wrap left side, under high, run, look up now, headshot. Like he's coming literally every single thing he possibly can. And he's also been like kind of trolling with it, because I've also heard like some really crazy stuff. But that's always BloodX when he's like coaching Mongraal or coaching, you know, Clicks and guys like that. But yeah, he's definitely been doing God's work with that duo. I was literally about to say trio, because it does feel like
it is a trio. It's a trio.
It's actually a trio. I'm also with you in that, like I said a lot after this weekend's FNCS. I am way more optimistic of them qualifying for Grands. I don't know how I feel about if they are actually in Grands, in terms of still just like people contesting them. You know, the situation around their drop spot is a bit uncomfortable for me. But yeah, they do look a lot better this week for sure.
No, I just watching them play, it's just on height. They look very consistent. As you said, like it is a trio. You listen to their comms. BloodX is talking the most out of them in endgame. He is telling them exactly what to do. And I want to ask, if you have watched them, any of you, what percentage of the work is each person, do you think, doing in the quote-unquote trio? Because I'm going to be honest, it feels like Blood has put in more work than Mongraal. And like that's it's hard for me to say, but that's how it feels when I watch them. It feels like BloodX is the biggest reason why they're doing well at this moment in time.
Yeah, I've always believed that like having a very confident IGL that like walks you through an endgame is a super huge advantage, because you don't have to waste brain power to like think about what you're gonna do. You just listen to what someone's telling you, and then you have to focus on like the literal mechanics. And we know Mongraal's good at those pieces. So this is like an enhanced version of that, where like neither player has to do too much thinking. Although we know like Savage would be a top 10 team with a good duo, but now he's playing with Mongraal, and those two are figuring it out while being guided through, not having to waste any of like their thoughts on figuring out what the next step is. And I think it's a huge part. A percentage wise, I couldn't give you, but I do think it's a massive bonus.
Yeah.
So I'm just laughing. Someone in chat said, "We know Mongraal is good at those things. Who's going to tell him?" to be fair, I know what you're saying. I do agree with what you're saying, though, Taylor. I do agree with what you're saying. Reese, I think you're going to button this something there.
Yeah, I was going to say it's an interesting to put a percentage on it, because everyone says Mr. Savage is a smart player, and he is incredibly smart at like in the moment decision making, figuring things out in terms of like fast thinking, wherever that may be. But he's never been a player who's been like a Queasy in terms of strategy, really getting like a game plan and understanding. So, you know, there's obviously different levels of intelligence that you have there. So I think like the ability, even obviously we're talking a lot about Mongraal and telling Mongraal specifically what to do, but in just terms of like game plan mapping and allowing Mr. Savage to be stronger at those areas too, I think has been one of the main reasons for their success over the last season, I would predominantly say, because, you know, if you've watched a lot of his gameplay, like Savage gameplay with any other players prior to this as well, like game plan, these kind of mid-game positioning, strategy, all this stuff was absolutely not ever a strong point too. So I think, you know, we can always say that how much he's helping on the Mongraal side, but I think also just to put it onto Savage's side too, I think it's a fair play.
No, 100%. And we actually have we have BloodX watching the stream right now. And Blood said in chat, give Mongraal some credit, guys. Bro told Savage 2 instructions. You know what, guys? Round of applause to Mongraal. Round of applause, man. 2
It's,
instructions. Wow. I mean, that is something. That is something for sure. Big ups to everyone that's watching live right now. We appreciate you all. I saw Monster D faces in the chat, my guy. And there's a bunch of other people hanging out here who's great as well. Yeah, I mean, I'm excited now to see how this goes with Mongraal and Savage. I mean, it was very obvious that like their biggest chances of doing well was going to ride on having somebody come in and give them the sort of macro strategy needed to be able to get there, because neither of them are going to have it. You know, so that always made sense. Let's move on from Mongraal and Savage now for now. Somebody's gone. How you doing, my friend? Are you do you have your good for this week? What was the thing that was best, or any goods? Maybe you had multiple. If you have multiple, that's fine as well. But what was your good for this week, FNCS?
I'm going to say it's all the teams that stuck together on NA. We have Clicks and Epic that stuck together, did well this weekend. Acorn Cold have stuck together. They did well. Baka Pars, another one that's a little under the radar, but definitely one of the better teams in the region. They did well. I'm sure I'm forgetting others. Peter Polo, how can I forget those two? They've been dominating the entire season, but also kind of glad they didn't win, because like just one little break from everyone talking about how amazing they are is kind of nice. But yeah, that's like, I'm a huge proponent of everyone sticking together. We saw the snake inning happen on NA, and now it seems like the teams that stuck together outperformed the teams that didn't, and I'm a big fan of it.
No, I agree. I think you watch NA, you see. I mean, it's the nature of this format as well. To be honest, you know, these 2 weeks for most top teams, even if they are new duos, it doesn't really matter as long as you're not completely throwing it on a lot of regions. You can just qualify by pure skill alone without having to have a lot of strategy and everything like that, and the chemistry. But I was gonna ask is, have any of the duos actually benefited from splitting? Because it feels like. You think of all the duos that have been put together, you know, Booger and Aegis, Aviv and Miro and Kanada and Cooper, and it doesn't feel like any of them are playing anywhere near the level they should be of their own parts.
No, I'd say short term, there's no way they could be better. You just played with someone, like all of those duos played together for multiple seasons, and some of them a year plus with Aegis, Kanada. So like, how are you going to play better with someone brand new while you're still trying to learn how that person plays? Versus you have a year like, and Aegis Kanata won an FNCS. Like, that's the one that makes the least sense to me. I like kind of understand the other ones, but yeah, how could you play better right off the bat when you have a year's worth of chemistry, understanding, and game planning together versus trying to figure it out this first week? But like you said, it's qualifiers, so you qualify for round 4. That's really all you have to do.
Yeah, I think it's. I always looked at NA, and I think it's just like the boogerification of that region, where it's like Booger was just like splitting with everyone non-stop, you know? And it's like the second there's the slightest of bad vibes, you split. And he was like still sort of successful with it, right? And so it's like, it's almost like you look at like Cammy and Seti, they're always the example that people use when it's like, we should stick together. I mean, Cammy and Seti have stuck together, and look at the benefit of it for them. But then a lot of people look and go, yeah, but Booger split with everybody. Even Tayson, a lot of people look at Tayson and say, yeah, but Tayson was splitting with everybody, and he's pretty well off, I'd say. But yeah, it does make me happy. I prefer when people stick together.
Yeah,
like generally, just because again, it's just like the story behind that always feels pretty good, and there's a lot of that is beneficial. I would say though, I think in EU, like some of the splits have been somewhat beneficial. Like I've liked what I've seen from some of the newer teams we've seen in EU. Chapentini, I think, is the big one that like have looked really good since splitting. But that's more so one of those like splits where it's like a clear and obvious. I think it was like a clear and obvious upgrade, right, for Chapentini.
Yeah.
In terms of combining them together. Whereas in NA, the problem is a lot of those splits aren't creating these like clear and obviously better teams than what was there before. It's like a different combination, and maybe it feels better for the players, but from like outside POVs, it's not like, yeah, it's like, okay, this is a bit of like a sideways move. It feels like at least in the results so far, it's looked like a sideways move for a lot of these teams. So yeah, I like that. A lot of the teams sticking together. I think that's good. Resub, what's your good for this week?
I give for this week server performance.
Finally.
Yeah.
Yes,
now,
yes.
I'm not sure how this was on NA. I'll come back to that in a second, SMG, but I know for a fact EU's had some upgrades, and my God, it was looking and feeling good. Like playing this season has been night and day in comparison to even just last season. And one of the things I've harped on about, I mean, since Globals, was that I think Global Championship ended up just being shambolic. Like it was embarrassing when you were sitting in the crowd on the day one watching. Yeah, I think it was a Middle East team's perspective, just stutter across the sky and like a fifth or sixth on rotate. And I was like, you know, I sat at that moment. I remember sitting and thinking, like, all these people have paid to come to this event, and we're watching a game where like the players are just literally, it's just RNG. It's not entirely RNG, of course, but like, you know, a lot of it is if someone lags in your face or whatnot. And massive props to Epic for putting a lot of work in and actually making massive improvements to the servers this season in particular. Obviously, I mean, maybe there's still ways to go. I'm fairly certain that's better on EU than it is any other server. I could be wrong, but yeah, huge props to that.
Yeah, the 10 Performance Cup a season and getting rid of Duo Cash, that seems to have finally worked out. It seems to, after having Performance Cups for however long we've had them now, it looks amazing to watch games. You know, you're watching games and their games aren't decided by lag. It isn't decided by whether a guy jumps in your box whilst you're holding the wall and it's not a phase. It's just like you can't see him jump in your box and you're just dead. Or you're dead out of the air because you're frozen on their screen. Like in last season's FNCS, I remember was it the King clip on height? Yeah. Where he just beamed someone who was just stood still in the air. And it was like, they can't do anything. But this season, it doesn't seem like you're seeing any complaints about it. And that's only going to benefit the fighters, right? That's only going to benefit the people who want to be aggressive in these games. And they can actually do it because of the fact that the servers allow them to. You're allowed to play at the highest level and you're not capped by how well the servers perform for you.
Yeah, there was one performance eval game. I think it was like the first week of the season or first tournament of the season. One of those ones, one of the really early ones, where it was so noticeably good feeling. Like we were in like a 30 or 40 moving or whatever. And, you know, by my own accounts, I was fragging out, which meant I had like, you know, 3 or 4 elims in a low elo lobby, which I was.
You were alive, so that's fragging out.
I was cooking, man. I was cooking. We got like over 1 elim, right? So it was a good day. But while moving through it in games, I was piecing kids up and I was like, this feels like I'm playing creative. Like, this genuinely felt like I was playing creative there in that lobby. And sure, it probably wasn't the most stacked lobby of all of the tournaments, so there'd be a bit more lag in some of those. It's not like it was a grand finals, but the amount of noticeable difference was absolutely insane. So massive props to them.
Yeah, I saw a lot of like, even the season before FNCS, there was like a lot of like events like you're talking about where there'd be like a couple of lobbies where the service felt amazing, crisp. I remember I think it was one of the earlier performance evals this season where it was like one of the finals where like the second game completely crashed. I don't know if you guys remember that one, but the game one, I remember like Tayson tweeting, those are the best servers I've ever played on in the end, during the end game, right? So like, it was like, clearly there's been, you know, a bit of a creep up. They had figured something out. The engineer, whoever it was at Epic that figured out what they needed to figure out, I hope they gave that guy a party. I hope they gave him a bonus. I hope they gave him like a dedicated like office celebration. You, my friend, deserve all the love in the world. Yeah, that was really good. That was really good. I was really happy about that.
How were they on NA SBG with this week?
Noticeably better. Like I tweeted out, I think it was the next morning or the night after watching. So good. Like you are so used to watching Fortnite and there's problems at some point while watching the tournament, right? There was just no problems. And I'm like, wow, this is way better. I was watching stream POVs. I was watching from the actual like Fortnite broadcast, noticeably improved on both sides. And I didn't see any tweets. Normally during tournaments, you see tweets, and not seeing tweets from players is a huge like, whoa, what's going on? This is amazing.
Yeah, it's a dream scenario where we're not complaining about servers. But long may this continue. Let's not talk too soon. But yeah, really, really big props to Epic for that. I think the numbers on it, I don't remember if any of you guys mentioned specific numbers, but I know a Syrian made a tweet where they mentioned the specific numbers of it. I'll actually bring it up as well, so that I don't
There's
get
an
it
NA
wrong.
tweet of it as well if you want. He's got it on his Twitter as well.
Nice. I'll bring up this one though. So this one, they said the property reported around 30% instability in semifinals without observers and 70% in FNCS finals with 10 to 20 observers. So usually the numbers were like 30% instability, 70% instability. We did the same thing again for today's round 4, and the results were 0.15% with 0 observers. 10 observers had 0.29%. 12 observers 0.28%. Like going from 70% server instability
Ridiculous.
to 0.28% server instability, that is insane. Like absolutely insane. So yeah,
Well,
big props to Epic, man.
Levin, you know as well as I do, there's like you can only put so many observers in a game, which causes issues for being able to watch all POVs, which inherently limits the broadcast from being able to show what they want to show sometimes.
Yeah.
So this could mean even better broadcast moments, performance, recording, post-production stuff. If we could, let's say 100 servers actually works and doesn't cause problems, we have each player POV, that just makes the game so much better to watch because you can jump from moment to moment without having to like wait, load. Okay, hold on. Any bugs on the screen? No. Okay, cool. We can show this POV. And that would be awesome.
Yeah, no, I agree. There's been times, like I'll let you guys know, there's been times, and I'm sure Reese will remember, and you as well, SPG might remember, there'll be times where we're like doing a broadcast and they'll be like, guys, the servers have been really bad. We're going to have to drop to like 3 observers. I'm like, what? The fuck are we gonna watch then? What?
Yeah,
Like, what are we supposed to do?
Just permanently in drone free watching all those.
Like what?
No, there's
like,
one drone free, and then there's 2 POVs you've got.
One on Mongraal, one on Savage. So there you go. There's
and one drone watching them all. Yeah,
bro. And it's like, you know, and you're there, and you're like, what are we gonna like? What are we supposed to even do? And then it always feels bad afterwards, and you see like someone onto like, oh, the other broadcast was shit today. And I'm like, I mean, watch anything, but nah, it feels good. It feels good. Hopefully, we see even more improvement because the more POVs we can have and observers, the better potential for cool things we could do. Somebody in chat did bring this up, and this was going to be my good for this week. I'm sure that's what you like this one. My good for this week: Mixon and Paco moving and winning round 1 of FNCS Core 1 in NA. I mean, it couldn't be any sweeter, man. They've been in NA for like 4 hours, and then it's like they win their first event. It was just poetic. Of course, you know, who cares who wins a round 1? It doesn't really matter. But I just thought it was, you know, it was nice to see them move. I still don't really know why they moved, and I still don't think I'm a fan of them moving in this case. But they did, and it seems to be going all right because even in round 4 they did pretty all right. I think they came like 20th or something. So like they're doing really good. A lot of people have been asking me, like, do you think Mixon and Paco will actually do really good in grands? I don't know what any of you guys think.
No.
Okay.
Where's the belief? Where is the belief?
Jeez, no belief for me, sir. Yeah, I'm not optimistic of that. I don't see a world where just they're uncon. I don't know why anybody would ever let them be uncon in NA. One, just as like a sort of like a FU to like an EU team coming to our region. I'm just like, F you, man, we're conning you. 2, when you're a new team to a region, you're always going to be conned. People ain't got the respect on you. 3, if any NA players have done their research, Polish teams off-spawn contested.
Yeah.
If I speak, I'm in big trouble. If I speak, I'm in big trouble. So
yeah,
they're
already contested. They're already contested by Miro in they land the same spot. So I am a fan of their move, right? Because Paco's been streaming a bit. He's been doing a bit of streaming, and he's getting good viewers. He's getting over 1,000 consistently when he's streaming now. Which if Paco's streaming on EU, he's not getting anywhere near that. He's not doing anything like that. And I think the best part about this weekend was the NA Twitter meltdown after Paco and Mixon won, going through their games, not enough kills in this game, not enough kills in this game, and just going through each and every game, not knowing that Paco and Mixon are a new duo who's never played a tournament before. Literally, like, Paco is a player who hasn't made a grand since like middle last year. Mixon obviously is a very good player. It's not like we've sent over our best team. We sent over a team which, if they made grands, you'd be surprised. If they didn't make grands, maybe on Mixon's side, you would be a little bit surprised, but you wouldn't be surprised if Paco didn't make grands. They're not a top team in any regard, and they've gone over to NA, and I know it's round 1, but I mean, they're looking pretty good. They're looking pretty good. I don't want to get too excited, but if the NA fans are already counting their kills for, you know, whether they played well or not, I think we're in good hands. We're in good hands as EU fans.
That was my funniest thing. Like, seeing people being like, yeah, but they camped, so it doesn't really matter because they were camping. It's like, what am I hearing? Like, Yeah.
This is
yeah.
NA fans say this, by the way. The
Yeah.
passive region, the NA region. But it's just like Peter and Poyo have made this new perception of how NA should be played. That you should fight everyone, kill everyone. You should get 30 kills every single game. When any other team is pretty much doing the same as they're doing. They're trying to qualify. You know, they haven't flown over to W Key and not qualify and everyone laugh at them. They've gone over there to, well, I don't know the exact reason, but at least
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
but at least to perform. From what I heard, so like KXR, who's Polish, was in my chat and was talking about it. It sounds like that Mixon wanted to go to NA, and for whatever reason, and Paco wanted to make a grants. He hadn't made a grants for a long time, and when Mixon and SETI, and because obviously SETI has apparently funded a bit of this, came up to it and said, like, look, do you want to go? Paco then obviously said yes, because obviously they're landing the same spot. They're landing Cami and SETI split, so they are. Yeah, did you? Yeah, did not. Know, yeah, they're landing Cami and SETI split. So yeah, so they're
he's gatekeeping on another region.
Yeah,
he saved himself at global.
Yeah.
What a play, dude! SETI's the smartest player in the world.
Not just that. What happened at Global Championships? Miro won, but SETI came second. And they're conning Miro.
Oh my!
Sent the shooters.
Unironically has sent the shooters, and not this only helps both teams. You know, you have consistent off-spawn prac for the whole year with a team you know are good, you know aren't going to leak any of the strats because you're best friends, and you're gatekeeping for. They're there for this season and next season, by the way. They're here for the next 2 seasons in NA. So they're actually they're gatekeeping for 2 seasons, the landing spots. So they're actually going to get it uncon.
That is mental. I love that. Now I am a massive fan of this. This is brilliant. This is the best thing ever in Fortnite. Like, what?
Yeah, so it is a lot of fun to watch. I watch their games every time they compete. They do look really good though. Like you watch them play. End games are, I mean, it's kind of what you expect from most of the Polish teams. And early mid game is very clean. They don't make many mistakes. They're going into end game with a lot of mats. In end game, they're not the most aggressive, but you're constantly getting the top 5. You're constantly getting decently into placements. They do play a decent amount of height as well. I think, it's very fun to watch, and even more so that. As much as it would have been fun, them not being contested, them being contested by Miro is going to make it even more fun to watch, you know, in the lower bracket, in the upper bracket, and then into grands. It's going to make it 10 times more fun.
That I'm a huge SETI fan if he purposely engineered this. Like the fact that I would have never known that. So first of all, thank you. That is amazing. Like we talk about strats, and this is like taking a strategy in game, like squishing it on the floor and being like, no, I'm sending 2 players to con you on your own region. You're not winning again, which is amazing. Then to talk to the other points, like it was so funny, even as like an NA guy, watching people freak out about like what this team's placement was in round 1, because let's be honest, we're not talking about round 1 if this isn't Mixon and Paco. No one cares about round 1. And like it's just funny because people are like, oh, they won round 1. And like obviously if I'm from EU, I'm throwing some shade towards people. It's fun, it's good banter. And that's the end of it. But it seemed like people genuinely got upset about it. Like I'm like, dude, who cares? It's round 1 of FNCS. This is like the first checkbox that every professional player needs to be able to do. And granted, some of them don't do that too, but it was funny. I really appreciated it, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I think one of the funniest things what I find funny is that maybe outside of Clutch is that the only people who actually care about like a region to region drama are NA people. Like literally no one else cares about if a team does good from NA, if a team does good from EU. Like there might be some back and forth from the EU people to poke fun, but like I don't think anyone here really cares. But in NA, it's like
Coach is like, no, I live with it.
My Polish flag is in the post. I am ready to have it on. I am ready for this.
At least visibly on Twitter. Then it just seems like everyone who cares about a region like argument is just NA people, and it always like screams of insecurity to me in a sense. Like, no, the team won on my region in an FNCS round 1. I must defend myself.
Yeah,
it's so fun.
I'm not too bothered. I used to really play into it. Like I used to have like the whole UK on top, EU on top thing, and like it was fun. I mean, there was a time when it was fun. it's sort of got a bit stale for me. But this is
Exactly,
reigniting it, to be honest. Like, this is reigniting the fire in me. I'm loving it. I am
It's
truly
region
loving
lock.
it.
No region lock kind of
Yeah.
ruined. Well, was where it was primed as. Every duo cash cup you had E versus NA every
Yeah.
single time.
Yeah.
And the region lock means we get none, so everyone's kind of died down about it. So having a bit of E versus NA as a fan, you know, you might not say you don't care. I'm enjoying this a lot. I am enjoying this a lot. When you get people in your chat, NA fans hating on them and EU fans defending them, it makes it so much more enjoyable. It brings that a little bit more enjoyment, which, you know, to NA as well.
We don't have enough rivalries in Fortnite,
Yeah, we
so
don't.
it helps.
Yeah.
That I think is a huge thing that we miss in Fortnite, is having that, you know, this person versus this person. It doesn't really, you know, it doesn't really happen too much in Fortnite, or like as you do, you know, long lasting rivalries. It's just this at least makes NA, and for the most part, NA has been the more fun region this season. It makes it even more enjoyable to watch.
Yeah.
Teddy
100%.
versus Miro rivalry.
Yeah,
We're making that happen.
Yeah,
We're making
manufacture
it.
right here.
No, someone needs to make like a proper like hype video, like with like almost like a documentary style, and like Seti's just there like, yeah, I sent them over. We had to eliminate
Get
them.
AI generated audio from Seti. I hate Miro.
Genuinely need it. Did anybody have any other goods from this week? Was there anything that stood out to you that was good from this week, or can we move on to the bads this week?
I'm pretty sure that's everything.
Bad's more fun anyway.
Yeah.
Bad,
Let's stop talking nice about Fortnite.
Okay, let's start to talk some shit now. Let's get into the bad. So we'll go the other way this time. We'll go the other day. Reese Hub, what was bad for you this week?
Format. Format is so sleepy, boring, man. Like I look at in particular round 4. You know, a lot of people say some of the earlier rounds are boring, like round 2. If you're a pro, round 2 is kind of pointless because you just need, in EU at least, you need to go top 2K to top 1K. So it's like top 50% of the lobby. I think if you're a player who's around that skill level, I think that's probably fine. Like it's more interesting to keep like a larger amount of people playing. I'm not so fussed about the earlier rounds, but not having the final round be a set lobby means I do not know who has done well outside of just looking at the leaderboard. Like I could go right now, open Fortnite tracker, read the leaderboard, and know infinitely more than what I know just from watching the show that happened on the weekend, right? It's like you're watching so many random lobbies. You see a good game here, a good game there. Literally almost all I could tell you about round 4 was that Pink and Vico won. Yeah. You know, it's just because it's so hard to follow not having a single lobby. And it had the exact same feedback last week or last season as well.
Yeah. I'm with you on that.
I was gonna say it's not even just the 4 rounds, which, you know, round 2's pointless, round 4 feels pointless. It's over in 2 weeks. So not only like it doesn't feel like it doesn't fit the having more people play competitions, because, you know, you're having 2 weeks FNCS, but by this Friday FNCS is done for 99% of the players.
Hopefully not us.
Yeah, not us. Yeah, we'll be in round 4 next week.
We're making it at least a Saturday morning.
Yeah, at least Saturday. But not only that, it doesn't even meet like a competitive side of things either, because there's no finals. As you said, like we talked about storylines a second ago. It's the same exact thing. It's like I have no idea, unless you actually go and do your research. I have no idea who contesting who at what spot. I don't have any storylines. I don't have anything. I'm not saying, oh, wow, this team's doing really good in finals lobby. This team might struggle with Surge. We have no information. We have nothing. We're going into lower and upper bracket with nothing to, you know, to root for or look forward to or look out for. It's just sort of, oh, yeah, as you said, Pink and Vico did well. Some teams didn't do well, but it's a round 4. So what does it really matter? Pink and Vico could easily win round 4. And if we went into a finals, they could come 15th. And it doesn't matter to me at all. It's just the biggest thing for me is storylines. Like, there's just nothing really to talk about when you're going into lower bracket. You don't have any sort of like something to grab onto to make you think like, oh, I'm really looking forward to looking at upper bracket. Because also in upper bracket, we have 16 different fucking finals lobbies that are all going to be so different in each way that it's like, I don't know who, like, as I said, who to watch, what rivalries off spawn, anything. It's just boring in my eyes.
Here's the thing. In order to know the storylines of what is actually happening, you have to either watch the player stream, and if they're not streaming, you have to go into replay mode and actually dig into all of those games and try and figure out what could the possible story. Like, you have to be like a full-time analyst in order to figure out what the FNCS stories will be coming up into the semis and then into the finals. who is going to do that outside of us?
Yeah,
exactly.
Outside of this call, who is going to do that? Like,
You said I'm even it.
yeah, I know. Yeah, I mean, I'm not doing that. So, but like, count me out of us. You guys can do whatever you want, but I'm not doing that. So how is like an average viewer meant to figure out what any storyline is going on from week 1 all the way through to the finals?
FNtasia.
I was
There we go.
Oh, we're not getting any useful information either.
They made this whole format so we could promote a podcast. That's basically
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
So
format
weird.
sucks though. Yeah.
Or this Levin guy, as an analyst, will be able to tell us the story on Sunday about all the teams that did whatever. So looking forward to that, my friend. I'm with you guys, and especially I don't know if it was this way on EU, but I know for NA, a lot of teams just landed Grim Gate that aren't going to be landing there come a set lobby. So it's like they're not even landing their drop spot; they're just landing to get the dash coin, which is arguably the most broken like individual item we've seen in 2 years plus, I'd say, and it doesn't really matter. This was also my point, right? It was less so like the overall format, but round 4 kind of lost its luster to me. And like that's what I find bad. Last season was cool. There's so much Fortnite to watch. You could watch tons of end games, really appreciate what's going on. But now that we're not like starved for Fortnite because it hasn't been like months, I don't want to watch end game after end game and jump from like Ken Beans to watching Miro play to watching somebody else play. Like it's not as interesting to me, and it was cool at first, but it's not cool long term.
Yeah, sorry, I got distracted by a message in the chat that I didn't understand. Sorry. So I just noticed that if a Resub's beard was a bit higher, it would perfectly fit into Levin's beard. I don't know. Yeah,
valid. Okay. That's some valid analysis.
I'll give you in this live.
There you go, mate. There you
go. Wow, but nah, I'm with you, SPG. It's like it's just you can't like follow like a story. Like when you have a set lobby, the beauty of it is that you're telling the story of this lobby. And it's already hard to do that in Fortnite. Like I still feel like we don't do that as a whole very well still in Fortnite. So now you're saying we got to follow the story of like 5 lobbies? Oh, no, we ain't gonna be able to do that, So yeah, I feel like there is definitely, hopefully, a change with the format. Because I feel like everyone feels that way. I don't think I've seen anybody talk like positively of this format from like a viewing experience at least. Because again, it's just pretty rough. In terms of more bads, my biggest bad this week that I'd say I noticed from round 4 was just a lack of performance from certain players. The biggest one has to have been Thomas and Queasy. Thomas and Queasy, of course, the team that came incredibly close to winning FNTS, right? 1 point off. Thomas HD is one of the best fraggers of all time, one of the best players of all time. Queasy, one of the best players of all time, one of the best IGLs of all time. Everybody was like, wow, these guys were really good. Last season, you could have won FNTS very easily. This season, it's feeling like there's a lot to be desired from them still. The start of the season was sort of weird for them. I think anybody that's really tapped into Comp Fortnite knows that like Thomas doesn't really grind the game. He's not grinded Fortnite for like a long time anyway, but like he hasn't needed to, right? Because he shows up to FNCS and he performs and it is what it is. He's so talented, you don't really lose that, right? You just warm up a bit, a couple 1v1s here and there, and he'll be good to go. Queasy, he went on holiday at the start of the season, right? Like he was like skiing and stuff, right? And I remember he was gone for quite a while, wasn't playing the game at all. And I remember he came back in, and I remember that first stream where he came back, right? Like he was scrimming, and it was very much he was like, yeah, like I need to figure everything out, man. Like I ain't really been about, he was like trying to use like the wings in games, and like everyone in this chat was a bit like, buddy, we already did this shit 2 weeks ago. Wings aren't a thing that you got to worry about. And again, I don't know how things have transpired since then, but then when you look at the result of this and they're not doing as good, it's definitely a cause for concern. You're looking at them thinking, oh, wait a minute, what's really happening here?
Well, yeah, I whilst you were talking, I was definitely listening, but I opened up Queasy's Twitter and checked the days of, the 14th of April. Just I wanted to see, there's those good Queasy tweets. The first tweet on the day, first tweet just before FNCS was, they doubted me since the beginning, motivational 1 minute TikTok. The next tweet is, this season is cooked. Immediately. Followed by, I haven't pulled a zone since 2023. And then I'm literally going to lose it. I'm playing with 6 small fry grey prompt every single game because my POI is getting split 4 ways and they're all just running. After that, qualled lore, this game is fully cancelled.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
I was gonna say their biggest issue is their landing spot. I'm not sure that spot is for them. I don't know. Like, in the cancel Cash Cup, they were getting beaten off spawn. In the reschedule one, they then got beat off spawn by that same team again. And then it seems like an FNCS are having massive problems at Mount Olympus again. It just feels like it's not working in the way they wanted it to. When you go from Lavish Lair, which is full 50-50, best drop basically wins 9 times out of 10, to Mount Olympus, where if you want to not die, you can just split and dip and you're taking half the loot. And what can they do? There's not a lot really they can do. And you can't really get the bot because it's, the team on top of the mountain will just sit there or jump down as soon as you try and take the bot. So you can't even get the medallion most of the games and the God DMR most of the games. It feels like they're just struggling so much this spot. And it feels like this spot is so hard to play to get everything out of it.
Do you think it's more so a problem with the spot or more so a problem with them at the spot?
I think it's a bit of both. Queasy did go on holiday for a bit. So there's a world where teams caught up and took over how the spot was going to be played. Because if you watch them when the season just came out in some of the eval cups right at the start, they were the best.
Yeah.
They were bossing it. Yeah, they looked really
They
clean.
were conned by Malibuka at first, right? And then they bossed them out of
I think you watch them at the spot and they had a clear understanding how to play it, and it feels like everyone's just copied what they did in the eval cup and now just do it better and more consistently because they've had the other teams who went on holiday had more prep, and now they can't do a lot. They're having to split, they're having to swerve, other teams are swerving, and it just feels like for a team like them who, in my eyes, should be claiming any of the big spots. You look at Lavish Lair, they were dominating last season most of the games against Cringe and Noms. They should be dominating a spot. But if you look at all of the medallion spots, you've got Brawlers Battlegrounds, which I think is going to be really hard to play in a finals lobby with all of the hills around you, the rotates. And then you've got Grimgate, which we already know is a mess on EU as it is with Kidwo, with Malibuka, with Ziandi, just a bunch of teams. And then you've got Underworld, which again, if you're contested, again, is going to be a similar problem. It takes forever to kill the bot. People come in third party. It feels like there's not an amazing spot, which is why obviously Vino and Tayson landing Fancy Fields is a very smart idea. It doesn't feel like there's a spot left for them to take. They're kind of just stuck with Mount Olympus. And it feels like if you're a team looking at a spot where you can just learn a little bit and just not die spawn, Mount Olympus is right up your alley. Like, I don't know if they're going to be able to come up with enough strats, enough ideas where, because you have to 50-50, there's like a 10 chest building on like the west side.
Yeah.
And if you don't, then you swerve and you can just take like the south side and then take the fishing pond and then disengage or whatever. And it feels like there's not a lot they can do to counter it. And I'm wondering if they're going to change spot, because even in that round 4, they were landing Grim Gate some games. So I don't know if they're going to change or if that was just because they were hating, as you saw from the tweets, they're hating Mount Olympus that much.
I think that was just the strat in general for the pros is just land Grim Gate knowing it's the best spot, and you'll lose a couple games off spawn, but then you'll win 2 or 3, and that's really all you need in round 4.
Yeah.
I also...
what were you going to say, Reese?
I was about to say, I've been landing Olympus. That is my drop spot of choice. So
you're the expert here.
Let's
hear the analysis.
I have died off spawn here more times than you could imagine, so I understand their pain. There is a real problem with, if you don't land in that 50-50 spot in the middle, a fight will take forever. And the biggest problem with the rest of the drop spot is the metal. There's tons of it there. There's 2 big metal buildings, slow as hell to harvest. There's a lot of statues and things like that as well. So if you're fighting, that takes a lot of time. Your metal takes a lot of time. If you want to try and get the boss, it'll take a lot of time as well, plus third parties roll in. So I don't know what and also the coin there is really good, but it's not as good in duos because you have one person who can run slightly faster. So the biggest issue is if you fizz together, one person sprint jumps way further than the other because they have the dash coin, which isn't good. So that's also how I've died a lot. So that is indeed how I know a lot. So it's like, I don't know what the end game for that is, but For us, it's ended up just being not fighting the boss, not even getting the mythic, because if you end up getting the coin messes us up a lot, even though it is kind of good for mid-game rotations. The mythic is really good, but I personally like a stealthy DMR, like the heat-seeking one, whatever it's called, thermal, because that thing is insane for damage instead. So it's like, is it worth wasting all the time fighting the bot? Probably not. And then if you're getting 50-50 off spawn and they're cutting off half your loot, you're already missing a big bunch of it as well. So I don't know. Are Queasy and Thomas a team who can take some of that loot, not 50-50, and then go fight someone to get the rest of the loot up and do it quickly?
But where do you fight? Where do you fight? Like, you're gonna go.
That's the problem. Yeah.
Are you gonna go fight the tunnel? You're just getting third party. Are you gonna go fight, the split north of you? Well, if Grand Glacier in a farms lobby has ears, they're gonna be able to hear you and they're gonna push you. Like, I just don't see how it works. And then on the medallion coin, it's very interesting because something similar is happening at Brawlers. They are killing the bot, but they're dropping the medallion every game.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that people don't want to get camped from in Storm because of how far you have to rotate.
Yeah,
if you have the medallion on you, you're just getting scouted and trapped in Storm. So most people get the AR, which is really good, and then drop the coin.
Yeah, so the 5% damage buff, I guess, isn't even that well good.
It's like 1 or 2 damage on like most weapons you're getting.
Yeah, what's
so
the
it's
point?
like just not worth getting camped, Like a lot of teams got the Brawlers one.
It's only scoped weapons, right? Like you don't get it.
No, you get it on the shotgun. I'm pretty sure you get it on shotguns. You get it on like Gatekeeper, but maybe you have to have scoped shotguns. But
like
even then, it's like, what's the worth for extra damage to be max distance every zone and just get tracked throughout the zone every single time? It's like, it's just rough. But back to Queasy, I don't know what the solution is. Is it change spot? Where do you go? You don't go Grim Gate and just make it even worse. Where can you go?
Well, someone in chat did say, to be fair, it's a set lobby spot. And I do think that in a set lobby, like a lot of the problems, like you can almost strap for it better. I feel like Mount Olympus is probably one of the worst spots in like an open lobby format for all the reasons you're talking about. To be successful there are so many variables you have to try and control. And in this format specifically, there's just no hope for them controlling all of those variables. Sorry. And so my hope is that, with a set lobby, things look better for them because they can prep it better. There'll be a bit more intimidation factor because it's still Queasy. Regardless of how these guys do, it's always going to be Queasy and Thomas you're fighting against on Spawn. That definitely was a bit of a surprise performance, I'd say, from those guys. And that was the one thing I'd say was bad. We'll see how they do again this week. I'm always looking forward to the Queasy Twitter, though. That's
always. No, he's on.
Yeah. Did anybody else have any bads for this week?
I have a bad, and it's EU round 3 servers crashing at the end of the tournament, and it was now. I tweeted about it, and there was some mixed opinions. It was a hard. Epic couldn't. But I think Epic did the best thing for them, but worst thing possible for the community, which is say nothing and pretend it never happened. Because there are so many.
That's what they always do.
Yeah, I know, right?
That is what they do every single time.
It's the Epic Classic. We expect something different. But
seems familiar.
Yeah, but in my eyes, it seemed completely unfair for so many teams, right? Because not only was it the end game that Queasy was in, where there was it was Ju and Robin who were on height, and they were already like coming like they had quad. They're on like 220 points on height in a dead lobby. They're winning the game. And then they leave, and then they don't have the points. They don't qualify. Teams like Shamaki and we, teams like Janice and Flixie, and then even more teams. There was 2 lobbies which were in mid game with like 50 teams, 50 to 60 players alive in each. It's like, to me, that seems so unfair. And then to not even have the decency, in my eyes, to tweet and say, "We're sorry this happened. We can't," like, if they had said like we can't reschedule or whatever, like it's fine. But like to say nothing, it's like a lot of teams missed out on a big opportunity, because in a format where round 4 you only have 2 weeks, and calling to one round 4 can be enough for your season. If we're going off, for example, Robin last season, he qualified he came 153rd in one of the round 4s. That was enough to get him lower bracket, which then qualified him through to upper brackets finals, and he qualified for winning a game to his first ever grand. So it's like, for a lot of teams not even to get the chance to do that, it seems so unfair to me.
Epic Games, mate.
Yeah, it is.
My thing with those kind of situations is that, like, I don't think we've ever has there ever been like a massive sort of like rescheduling they've done, or like an FNCS? I feel like
last FNCS where the first round 1 didn't work, where people couldn't get into game. Where they had
what did they do then?
They moved everything forward. So what they did,
Oh, yeah,
is
they
obviously
moved.
our team- so it was 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday, which they could have done the same thing if they. And the question is, would you have? Because it was 6 lobbies that were affected, and I think it was like 3 were in end game, 3 were in mid game. So it totaled to about over 100 teams were affected. So some might have been able to qual, some might not have been able to qual. Would you have restarted it? Because it's 6 lobbies out of it was 197 lobbies, so 6 out of 197 lobbies got affected. Would you have restarted because of it?
That is a tough one.
Flip a coin.
Yeah, because
get Zeke out.
Yeah. because it's unfair for everyone.
We
to
have a
qualify.
winner.
It's unfair for the top 100 teams or top 150. You could even argue who qualified fair and square.
Yeah.
But then it's unfair for the other 100 teams or more that got affected by it.
So Daria in the chat said at least give them their points. Is there a shout for them, like, you know, giving people like the average of however the points they had already, give them the average, you know, points that they had? Because I've seen that's been done. I remember like I think that was done in like Red Bull when people were having problems in like the Red Bull land.
That's like a third party event though.
I know it's different with third party event, but like that kind of solution, do you think that would have been viable? Like you just give people like the average points that they've had throughout the tournament, and then, you know, wherever that leaves people. Or...
It's hard. Because
do you think there's anything they could have done outside of rescheduling? Do you think there's anything they could have done that would have been?
Nope. I don't think so. Because even if you add points, right? Because obviously Queasy, you have the Queasy clip where he's in endgame, he's in a top 12. Shamaki was also in that endgame in the top 12, and so was you and Robin. It's like you can give them their points, but what about the teams who are in mid game? You have no idea how their games are going to go. They could win the game, they could die to search. You have no idea. It's in fact the only way they could have if there was ever the capabilities of like in League of Legends called a chrono break, where you go back in time and you start the game again at that exact point. So like you still have the server, but obviously the server completely crashed. Obviously it lost, I'm assuming it lost the memory of the game or whatever, right? I don't see there was an alternative solution to either restarting or letting it go on and tweeting something. Or doing the epic, which is nothing.
Yeah, it's weird because I'm sure just from like my experience of like in the past with like set lobbies, etc., I'm sure there is like some sort of like protocol where like there's if a certain amount of people are affected, then they would restart, you know? Like I'm sure if it was like, I don't know what that number would be. But again, you said like I know, yeah, but there's 190 lobbies or whatever. How many was it?
So I will send you the screenshot of all the games affected quickly.
Yeah, so like there's like 190 lobbies. I'm sure maybe if it's like there's like 50 lobbies or something affected, like there must be like some number of like the percentage of people playing that they aim for. If
the one with the red
dots
dots.
Restart.
Yeah.
What is it?
Yeah.
Let me
just banned everybody. Just everybody in those
lobbies,
just ban them.
Just move on.
They don't deserve to be able to play. Just ban them.
Yeah, I remember seeing something. Let me open the rules quickly while we're chatting, because I remember there being a specific rule about this.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Now I'm curious about that because I didn't know they had like the rules for that. But
where is the rule?
It's tough. Pappy said this in chat, and I think it's always like the one sort of thing you look at. It's like human thinking, yeah, and I'm sure on like a human level, like most people would want there to be some fair resolution for people. Corporate thinking, hell nah, right? Like that's always the problem here, is that we are all dealing with this as humans and looking at it from this perspective, and the people making the decisions aren't thinking about it from that perspective, right? Which makes it problematic.
I think number one is there's a problem on Epic side for lack of tech for this kind of thing. So the first issue is like if a server crashes somewhere, there's not the ability to, even if they wanted to, I don't think there's an ability to add points anywhere. I could be wrong in that. I don't think they've ever done anything like that before, where they manually give points for something back. I don't know if they have the tech for that. As Harry said, there's not a server rewind feature or anything like that, or even a way where you could just restart those games individually with the same people. There's no technology available for something like that. And I think, server crashes and all this kind of stuff happen. And I think that's something that has to be accounted for at some point. When it happens and there's no solution, it's kind of crap. But I did find the rule that I scrolled through the FNCS rules. And basically 5.2 is technical issues. And the first point under that says, due to the nature and scale of online competition, except This is always an important line. Except as otherwise determined by Epic in its sole discretion, which means they can do, if you don't speak lawyer, that means they can do whatever the fuck they want. Matches will not be restarted or made null due to bugs, intentional disconnections, server crashes, or unintentional disconnections. So then just to put the cherry on top, except as otherwise determined by Epic in its sole discretion.
Yeah, so if Mongraal and Savage where their games crashed and they didn't qualify,
they could
maybe there'd be a different solution. That answer might have been different.
Look, when they say by Epic in its sole discretion twice in 2 lines,
they're really
shut up, mate. Like, we're just gonna do what we want about it. But again, I think the hardware is like the biggest issue in this, or having no solution if something goes wrong is kind of a problem. Do I know what that solution should be? Absolutely no. No, I don't. But
there's got to be something. So
I think if this kind of stuff will probably keep happening in non-set lobbies, and this was close to a set lobby, it's around 3, you know? Yeah. So I do think some sort of solution is, but I'm not being useful by giving them any because I don't have any off the top of my head. So.
Well, and also from their perspective, it's do we give ourselves more work or do we just deal with some complaints? Because it's like inherently a lot more work to then reset everything, make sure the correct players are in there, reschedule the times, somehow get this all figured out in like the players would want it in like 5 minutes, but like obviously it's going to take time and it's just easier, right? If that's my job and it's 9:00 at night and I know I have 3 more tournaments I have to deal with, sorry guys, like deal with it.
Do you also think that that's part of the lack of response completely? Because I feel like if they do acknowledge it, like let's say they do like the classic V-Bucks, you know, so we'll give everyone V-Bucks, you know.
That's more than most people to make an FNCS, so I think they take it, to be honest.
But I feel like in that situation, they probably almost get like more public complaint. Whereas like if you just sweep it under the rug, like it never happened, like the classic, it never happened. What? Didn't see that. Never happened.
I mean, when you said that, I forgot about it. You know, until Harry said it, I was like, "Oh yeah, that was kind of crazy, wasn't it?"
Yeah, I actually had completely forgotten that.
Exactly.
As well myself. So yeah, that's a good point. All right, let's move on to the ugly.
Somehow that wasn't the ugly.
I know when you said it, I thought that would be in your ugly, to be honest. But yeah, it wasn't in your ugly. That surprised me. Yeah. SPG, I'll give you this one to start off with. What was your ugly for this week?
So for me, it's kind of just like the fall of Scented, the player that was one of the greatest in the world, not even just in NA, seems to have just like stopped caring about playing the game, which like full respect to him. I wouldn't be able to put in the effort to be at the top of this game for years. And, you know, probably overreacting because it's around 4 and like all of us know that doesn't really matter that much. But, you know, just bottom half of the pack, not doing well in around 4. He's playing with Tahi, and like Tahi's also a good player, has been a great player at times, but it's upsetting to me that we just kind of like watch this great fall apart and seemingly no one's really gonna say anything, and he's just gonna fade off into like top 500 and then top 1000 and then one day put out like a retirement tweet, or maybe this is a wake-up call and he comes back. But yeah, seeing one of the greats seem to go by the wayside is the ugly for me.
It seems like he's been jumping into the content side of things instead, you know. I've not watched them, but I just keep seeing tweets about making vlogs and doing whatever he's doing now at living life and whatnot. And I think like to some point, I guess if you've not won yet, you're just like, you know, I'm giving up now. I'm just going to make content instead, mate. I'm out here. Sorry, boys. But on a serious note, I think maybe it's more just maybe the passion's gone. It's been a long time, you know?
Yeah. You see a lot with like top players, you know, where it's like it does sort of just go tits up for them. It's a weird one with Scented because I look back at like the sort of trajectory of his career and it does sort of feel weird to me because he went from like he was in these really good teams where he's getting second consistently, and you know there was a whole meme of him being second. Seemed like he was just easy one of the best players. Like not even seemed like he was. Like you ask anyone back then, right? Like who are the best players in the world? Not just NA, in the world. And Scenter's name always came up when you talked about like IGLs and like minds of the game. And then it just all sort of like spiraled. I know he had obviously like a bunch of the controversy and stuff, but he's always been somewhat controversial. I think when it was weird for me was when he was playing with Clicks. Because when he started playing with Clicks, it became apparent that like in terms of like as an IGL in mind, like he sort of wasn't there anymore. Like it felt really weird. Like I always associated Centered with being like the type of guy that like knows the meta well. Like he just knows the strats. You know, I remember he would do streams where he'd like VOD review and like he was talking about you could see he had that almost confidence where it was like, yeah, like I know everything there is to know. And then he starts playing with Clicks and it was very weird. I remember they were being coached by BloodX back then as well. And it was like, it always felt like Centered didn't really know what's going on. I don't know if maybe before that season, he maybe had like a break or something, but he clearly wasn't up to speed with things. Sort of like when you're talking about like IGLs. And I know like, obviously when you're playing with Clicks, you know, and you're not doing too good, Clicks' community is going to let you know. So I'm sure that had an effect on him as well. But since then, everything sort of felt really, really off about him with me as like an IGL. And yeah, and I guess that sort of led to sort of like where we're at here today. Yeah, I don't really know how we ended here with Centered. It's a shame though, because it does feel like a typical ending for like a lot. It's not the ending as well. Let me not say ending, but where we're at least in the journey, it feels very typical of what we've seen with like a lot of, you know, top players. And yeah, to get like 177th in like a round 4 again, it's just not what you'd expect of someone of his name value and caliber at least.
Yeah, for me, like Centered's downhill was once Clicks got banned for stream sniping, because that was in the season. I was just looking back at their placements in that season in that FNCS. They came 4th in the finals, and then they had just qualified to the next finals of that same week. So they were on an upwards trajectory. They were doing really well in scrims. They were a team to watch and enjoy watching. And Centered probably thought in his head, this is finally the season. You know, you've got they were landing Mega City. They had a great spot. They were doing really well consistently. And you're probably sat there Centered thinking like, oh, it's guaranteed grands and maybe even a chance to, you know, finally win an FNCS, and it gets ripped away from you. Of course, a lot of your motivation is going to go, because you go from that to, well, I mean, there's not been a lot of good performances since then. To me, it's no secret that that's probably where it switched in his head from everything that I put, all the time and effort I put into the game, got ripped away out of my control. And why would then you put even more effort in when you know you're probably not going to find a duo or perform at that same level as you did with Clicks? Because I know they still struggled, and Centered sometimes still struggled competing on stream. I think when Clicks got unbanned, that was kind of the main reason they didn't play again, was that Centered didn't want to play on stream again.
Yeah.
But they were performing so well. They were very, very consistent and very good. And it just seems like that was the turning point from Clicks getting banned for stream sniping, or someone stream sniping Clicks, or Click, whatever, right?
I think on that as well, like that season specifically, I know like it's sort of hard to remember for a lot of people, but I remember that season specifically a lot of the time. It felt like it felt like on Center's side, he didn't enjoy like the streaming, like you said, and I also felt like he didn't enjoy being coached by BloodX. I know BloodX in chat, so maybe you can give some more insight into that. But I remember a lot of those moments where it's like he almost didn't want BloodX's voice there, like he almost just wanted to play his own game. And I think when like BloodX almost took like a step back from that duo, it sort of helped them, because it sort of, they had a bit more clarity and confidence in themselves. Like I remember there was a specific stream where they were playing. It might have been like a Cash Cup or something. It might have been the Cash Cup that you mentioned, Harry, where, you know, they were being coached by BloodX. They had like an argument one of the games. Then he was like, okay, I'm not coaching you for the next game. And then they won the next game. So then everybody was just like, so then in their heads, they're like, yeah, see, man, like, we're good, you know, like that kind of thing. And yeah, and again, even before, not long before that, was like Invitational, and he's playing with Cold and they're doing really well. And so it's like, again, it just felt like he was in a really good spot. And then it just all sort of, you know, went tits up. So
yeah, he was a shotgun shot from Favs away from qualifying to that Grands too. Because if you remember, like Centered went down because BloodX just threw it up. Centered went down, Favs clutched up, got him back in the game, and then he goes down in a final 1v1 for the win against Diego Plays. So like he almost overcame Clicks getting banned to still make finals that season. And you know, maybe it's just like, how many times can you like get to where you want to be almost, and then get turned aside until you say, screw it, I'm just going to focus on something else.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair. I mean, that's fair. Any other uglies this week from anybody?
One of the ones I had, which was to completely contradict Harry's good that he talked about, was I just put Mr. Savage and Mongraal's drop spot, which, of course, is amazing if you manage to win off spawn and get forecast. But 4 out of 9 games dead pretty much insta off spawn with everyone third party and rotating in. How we think it, my thought process here is this stick with it, move with it. How does this become in like a grand finals if they make it there?
So my thing is you stick with it. And this has been part of why like their recent like good performances has made my TikTok and Twitch chat hell, because I get their fanboys coming in going, hey, like these guys are really good. Like 11, you were saying you don't think they're gonna make grands. Like, what's going on? Like, you better eat your words, bro. And I'm like, okay, chill out. Because the situation with the drop spot is still not great. Like, it's not good. And that will be the ultimate determining factor of what does the lobby look like when it comes grand finals time, which I'm more confident that they'll make, but I'm not confident in the drop spot situation will do good. Now, the reason why you stick with it and you don't leave is because it's Mr. Savage. He's not, no matter where he goes, he's conned. Like, no matter where he goes, he's conned. And rightfully so. You look at the history of Savage being conned, he's never really done good while being contested. So why wouldn't teams contest him? Like, you know, and that's what a lot of people don't realize is that a lot of the good teams in EU that don't get contested, they don't get contested not because like they are like, just because of like, oh, scariness, or yeah, like, you know, why would I ever contest Thomas HD or something? No, it's because a lot of these people have previous history of dominating a team of Spawn and like bossing them, right? Like, we're not going to con them because this team has shown in the past they will boss somebody or Spawn. Savage has never had that, right? Like, never. It's always been very even, if not a lot of the time the other team getting the better off. And it's part of why, even though they are an amazing team, Malibu Mustache still stay conned a lot of the time, because as much as they're good, they've never actually bossed someone off Spawn, really, right? Like, it's always been very even when you contest them. And so, unfortunately for Savage, he's had so many examples in the past where he's been conned and not really done much about it, that people are always going to con him. So whether they leave the spot or not, they're still going to be conned. So you might as well just stick with it, really.
Yeah, I agree. I think I thought, I was always thinking while watching, because I was watching much of their early games. I wasn't watching much of their actual like game plan and strategy revolving around forecast. And I was just like, why would you stay here for this like minimal loot? Obviously, there's good metal. There's other positions. There's like, other reasons to stay there. But I'll also be interested in grand finals of that if they're conned off spawn and then other teams push and fight for forecast every single game as well. Then it's like, then how are we really going to see that team do? Then the question more in my mind is like, okay, if you're going to be contested anyway, do you just rather contest somewhere where you're not going to have to be contested off spawn and contest for forecast as well? You know?
I mean, Harry, I don't know what you're thinking, but is that something you'd still sort of consider for them?
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard because from watching that spot, it feels like if you're contested, you can't get forecast because you're too slow. That's how it feels, or you don't have enough loot. Because the whole thing about that landing spot, you've got the drones, obviously, constantly around them. You have quick mats on the rotate towards the forecast. The whole thing is you can get quick loot, you can get quick shields, you have the slap barrels to be able to sprint over there quicker, and then you can instantly get forecast. If you're contested, it removes all of that. Do I think it's a good spot? Absolutely. I think the spot's insanely good. I think the loot's not that good, but I think in a finals lobby uncontested, you can see what they can do. Even if they don't play for forecast, the positioning is good, and this meta, it seems really good. You have options, you know, you have dash water knee, you can go do things from that spot. My biggest concern, is how many good EU teams land there. Because we're talking about Teeny and Chap, and we're talking about, you know, Savage and Mongraal. We're not even talking about Bevies and Pablo, who also land that spot. And it's like, at what point is being triple conned at that spot? Is that when they're going to dip? Where, as you said, where do they go? Because they're either going to have to land somewhere awful, or they're either going to have to land somewhere awful, or they're going to have to land somewhere where, you know, they're going to be contested no matter what. Like, they're not going to have spawn to land in an insane spot like Grim Gate or anything like that. But any other spot they go, they're going to be contested by a team who's landed there for the whole season already. So I don't see any other option. I think making grands is the main thing for them. Obviously, they want to make LAN, but I think realistically, if they make grand finals, you saw the viewership last season. They're winning grands already if they make grand finals, so it doesn't actually matter for them.
Oh, they're doing more than winning grand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're winning invitational and grands at the same time.
Yeah, like they are. Trust me, it is, and that's why for me, like I remember when I saw them in Norway when we were filming the snowball fight video, and I asked them like, "Oh, you guys gonna like work with Blood again this season?" And they both were sort of like, I remember like saying to them like, "What? Like, are you like it's a no brainer?
Yeah.
Like the investment is a no brainer. Like you will just not you either." Don't make grants and don't make as much money, or you pay a old man a bit of money and you make like a lot. I won't say numbers, but you make a lot. It's a no-brainer, and it's good to see that they clearly picked the right decision in that sense. And I do hope it goes better for them. I hope they don't lock a bottom 10, but like the Osborne situation just doesn't look great for them.
The only other thing is anyone contesting them in finals will get banned. So
that is true.
There is a fear.
Did we ever find out what happened with that? Like, was there anything like it's just nothing?
It's like also just those players are still playing. Like they didn't even get banned; they just got removed from the leaderboard. Because all like the people from EU who got removed from the leaderboard are still playing now on the same account.
Yeah, they're playing.
So they've not been banned. They've just removed.
But there was multiple teams who had that happen to. And
again,
there's
13 teams. Like
this isn't my point on the ugly, but like, how do teams in a grand finals get banned and we get no communication at all? Like, I understand the duo cash cups to some degree. Still, if a top level player is getting banned in any other game, there is a tweet going like competitive ruling for this player, right? The fact we are literally grand final players are getting removed from a leaderboard and it is silent. Are they cheating? Are they stream sniping? Did they ult? What are they doing?
Well, also like they don't know.
Yeah, they don't know.
They probably
they
do.
They definitely do. But like,
but I don't think there's a good communication line between like Epic and them though.
Yeah,
like they know because they'll probably know what they're doing.
But they don't know exactly.
People who are banned, they don't get told, "Oh, we found this," or "You did this." You just get banned. And if you ask, they go, "Yeah, your ban was correct." And that's it.
Yeah, exactly.
But what if it wasn't? I mean, I think it was most times, but
for me, it's like FNCS is a big enough competition to where like there should be some sort of like, hey, like there's enough like stakeholders in this, whether it be the players, fans, people, organize. Like there's so much in it that like there should be some sort of, hey, this happened. These people were removed for XYZ reason, and that is what's happened, But yeah, that's one of those things where it's like the silence there is just very odd.
I mean,
the bare minimum for FNCS Grand Finals, like
right.
It's set lobbies. We know who these teams are. You're not even having to search for them. They are here. Yeah. And especially for Brazil, it's the most obvious one. You have a team in first place that just doesn't play day 2. Like, what? If I am a fan of Fortnite and I don't like sit on Twitter trying to figure out what's going on, I'm like, what the hell just happened? Where is my first place team?
Yeah, I agree. I think the biggest thing is like, as you said, that was what I was about to say about the Twitter thing. It's like, so FNCS ends. Mongraal and Savage have been contested by Splash and Nate. The whole, not Splash and Nate, it was Nate and Lane. Sorry, the whole FNCS. And now you go into the tournament ends. It's fine. You go back a month later, and the leaderboard's different to what you remember. And there was no announcement, no nothing. It's just from what you've just remembered and what you've watched. You're like, oh, these guys finish here, and you look back like, wait a second. I'm pretty sure they finish here. I don't think they finish here. I don't think they finish that much lower down. It's just, it doesn't make sense. It's like, it doesn't make sense for fans. It doesn't make sense for competitive players. It's like, are we going into the next grand final? Some teams being scared they're going to get banned with not even banned, just yoinked out the leaderboard, money taken away from them for no reason. Or there probably is a reason, but not a
no communication.
Yeah, no communication. Exactly.
I feel, I don't know. I can't remember if someone, I don't know. I'm fairly certain the reason they don't do that is from World Cup though. Like, because of they used to make statements around in 2019 around like
remember Ziff and
Ronaldo, and then came to the event and then everyone just got booed and they were like, this is probably bullying, so we're not going to do this anymore. That's the thing.
They deserve it.
Absolutely.
They deserve it. If they get banned or removed for doing something wrong, stream sniping, it also makes an example. So teams are a little bit, they're probably still not going to be that afraid, but they're going to be more afraid of, stream sniping, ult accounting, these sort of things, right? That's actually going to bring a fear factor in it. If you're just getting banned and you can just make a new account and just say, oh, my account went inactive, and went inactive again on the next qualifier. Like we've
Yeah.
seen it. We've actually, I'll bring it on. We saw it this qualifier. No
Yeah,
one's
what's his
talking about
name?
Itchy and Kronos, right?
Kronos.
So Kronos last season, well, he played with Sped. All you have to do is watch his gameplay. That's all I'll say, right? And yeah, let's just say last game of lower bracket, they ran into a building, knew there was a team camp, and there was no info. Let's just say that happened, right? Let's just say, right? And then this FNCS, he goes on a brand new account with 7 events played, just saying, oh, inactive guys. Like I just epic screwed me out here. They go play a new account. They come 4th in round 4. Think how many teams, by the way. We're not in round 1. This is round 4. How many different stages, how many teams they've killed, how many teams they've griefed games of, to the point they've come 4th in a qualifier to then get banned and nothing to be said. We obviously, like, it takes a pair of eyes to know that he's cheating. It's not that, but like, all I'll say is like, the fact we don't, the fact we don't get to know is like, if you cheat in a video game to gain money and to rob other people's money virtually, it's like you deserve some form of backlash.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just gonna make a YouTube video on everyone who gets banned, so that if you Google their name, there's just one for everyone.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting what you said about the Ronaldo and Ziff thing, because I remember that, and I understand, I guess, from their perspective as a company, especially when you look at their philosophy with things, why they'd want to avoid stuff like that in future. I personally thought that was one of the most interesting things about World Cup.
Yeah.
Like about Fortnite ever.
Respectfully, the World Cup crowd was trash. Like they were just not interested. Respectfully to any of you who might have been there, like, it just wasn't an interesting crowd. But when like Ronaldo and Ziff on screen and then people are booing, like that's lit. Yeah, man, let's boo these motherfuckers, man. These fuckers, they cheating. Let's boo these guys, man. Boo, boo. Like I thought that shit was sick. I remember like I was doing my viewing party like back then. That like
you were joining in with the boos at home.
Bro, me and Felix were booing. Yeah, man, boo these guys. But yeah, I guess they want to avoid that type of shit.
Yeah,
but it's good to have like
again, it's a bit of emotion in competitive. It's the whole thing we talk about rivalries and things like this. It brings enjoyment to the game. Seeing someone get booed is funny to watch. We need to have more of it.
Yeah. Like we need villains. Like again, I would have loved if when at Globals, if when Canada and Aegis came out, they got booed by the Danish crowd. That would have been sick. Like that would have been sick. Like because again, you know, the home favorite Thomas being conned in Denmark by this team. Yeah, that's boot. Like I think that's cool. And obviously, cool. Not everyone can handle that. And I think probably depends on the reasoning. But like, I don't think that's like bad. Like it's competition. It's like this happens in all competition. I don't think it's bad. And I think in most cases, like people understand depending on why. So like, let's say that happened to Canada, right? They would have 100% understood. Like, yeah, we're in Denmark. Thomas is the fan favorite. You guys can boo us. We're still gonna beat them, right? Like, and especially Canada is probably like the best person for that because he'd play into it, right? But like, even with like Ziff and Ronaldo, like I don't know how they feel about it. Maybe they now would say, yeah, man, it was really dark time for us, man. That shit was awful. And if it was, I'd understand. And I hope that wasn't the case for them. I do remember seeing in Valorant, right? When Ziff moved to Valorant, he'd get it all the time in Valorant, bro. Like in Valorant, they'd like people be like, oh, that's the guy that cheated in Fortnite World Cup. Like, and I feel like I remember him like sort of like being like, yeah, it happened. Like it's okay. Like like I understood it, right? Because it's like, yeah, like of course I did something that people didn't like, right?
Yeah.
But even outside of that, we should just know from the perspective of like we deserve to know, no? Like again, like these are competitions we're all involved in, but yeah.
Don't cheat. If you don't want to get the smoke, just don't cheat. There's a pretty simple, you have to actually go out of your way to get booed and make all this happen, which is like, I don't know. Also, like if you're cheating at some point and banned throughout the year, you shouldn't be able to qualify for global. So like, why is that even, yeah, whatever. I hate the fact that like cheaters are infested in this game and we get nothing. Absolutely zero from Fortnite.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree. We did kind of get sidetracked and start going on a tangent, but that's what I love about this show. That is everything I love about this show. In terms of uglies, another ugly that I had was Yozzo and Rise. Yozzo and Rise in round 4, 109th place. That duo, I don't know what happened, man. I would have said not I would have said, I quite literally did say last year, when we did like the comp awards, shout out to somebody's gun for running the comp awards. Looking forward to it this year again. When people were voting for like duos of the year, Yozzo and Rise were in like my top 3 for duos of the year. They weren't the winner, but they were in the top 3 because I thought when you looked at duos across 2023 who were consistent, performed well in seemingly every single competition, those guys were two of the names that came top of my mind straight away. It's almost crazy to me that they haven't won an FNCS. Like they've been good enough to win an FNCS now for about a year. like every FNCS they've played together, it feels like they've been good enough. But it seems like things have sort of been spiraling in a weird way this season, especially after what happened, obviously, last Grands, where, they were doing incredibly well, were one of the few teams poised to maybe win the whole thing. Then they start getting DDoS to death and they couldn't play and whatever. And still somehow managed to get top 10 in the Grands, even after missing out like, 3 of the games or something. They do really bad, in round 4 last weekend. And it's weird for me because I know from like talking to these guys before Grands last season, they weren't in a good place as a duo. I don't think the results were necessarily that bad, but they weren't amazing. Like I think if you go back and look at the results from last season, they weren't bad, but they weren't amazing. And I think there was already sort of, like when things are rough with a doing, there's already that element of like, hey man, if things don't go too good, and maybe we might as well just end it all, as a duo, after the Grands. But then Grands did sort of go good but bad because like they were playing well in Grands, but then they did bad in the sense of the DDoS and stuff. And then we come into this season and they've not looked amazing really. They looked to the right, I think, in one of the rounds maybe, and I think in some of the cash cups have been okay. But again, it's not been like, you look for duos at a certain point, if there's not that progression, especially when you're a team that's not won FNCS. I think when you're a team that has won FNCS, you can always hold on to that. It's like, okay, maybe things are going a bit downhill, but we had that prime that we can look back on and hope to push towards that. Where these guys have been playing together for a while now, and they've come close so many times. At a certain point, it's like the wheels. It feels like the wheels are starting to fall off, right? And like, you almost need like the defibrillators to like. You need something to shock these guys back into like being a good team again. And I guess after that performance, I can't imagine that things would have been very positive in the Yozzo and Rise camp. That there was certainly like when I was scrolling down the NA leaderboards, there was certainly like a big surprise to see them all the way down. They weren't like again. When I know we talked about round 4 format, but when a team's not in that top 100, when I can't control F, search your name and see you on the first page, something's gone wrong. Like something has gone wrong.
No, 100%. I was I looked at their matches. I haven't gone around to watching their games, but I've seen out of the 10 games, it seems like 6 of them have been affected from off spawn. So I was wondering if they have been what I'd call suffering from success of their spot bet getting buffed. You've now got, so obviously they land mid map, they had the tunnel, so they had both last season, right? What it seems like on EU is that's now taken into 2 different landing spots. You now have the teams who land, the little villa mid map and the pot and the lake and all of that area and gas station. And you have the teams who land tunnel and the bit south of it with all the god chests and everything. I wonder if that's becoming a problem for them because I remember watching them in the first Euro Cash Cup and I'm watching them in the finals lobby literally get 40 chests uncontested, 5,000 meters away from each other. And I'm just like, this can't be possible because they are literally looting everything and just getting it all for free. I wonder now if teams over the season start to realize, wait a second, these are 2 landing spots. We have to, take one of them. They can't get both. And I wonder if that's a problem they're going to be having, which is like they've gained more loot, but now they're more contested, which now means they're struggling a lot more. When you see it's like 4 of them, they die off spawn, and 2 of them, they've had to reboot and have bad games because of it. It's like, is that because of off spawn? Or is it other reasons, as you said, like the duo not having the best vibes at the moment?
I saw their drop spot at the beginning of the season, and like Manu posted it for scrims, and he's like, "Do all these work?" And I'm like, "No, like who's giving that much loot to somebody?" And then like people replied to me, "It's like that's Yozzo Rise's split." I'm like, I don't care. Like that is not a drop spot where you're landing. You're taking like 1/8 of the map is what you're trying to get away with. And like it's fine. Maybe in Grands they could get that, but in most games there's no shot.
You can't in Grands because what do you do? Do you have because are you going to double contest Villa? Well, then all it takes is a team double contest Tunnel. But this is what happened last Grand. Right? This is what happened EU Grands last season. There was a team who landed when Tunnel was shit last season. There was a team that landed Tunnel every game in Grands last season, and that was when it was bad. Now it's actually contestable. It's like you can't land Villa and land Tunnel. You're going to have to give up one at some point. And it's like, which one do they give up? If they give up the Tunnel, obviously they're losing a lot of their metal and they're losing a lot of, the barrels they're able to get, right? But then if they lose out on, the Villa side, they're losing a lot of their rotates and they're losing out on a lot of the positioning they can have in the mid game. So it doesn't feel like either one is great at the moment. And it doesn't feel like it's benefiting them getting that extra loot.
So I thought Resub was gonna.
I have absolutely nothing to add on these.
It's fine. It's fine. Yeah. Don't worry about it. Was there anything else that people thought was ugly from this week's FNCS?
I've got one last thing.
Okay, one
EU Grimgate. EU Grimgate. And because you watch the teams on any other region and it feels like Grimgate is the best landing spot they've ever added. Then you watch EU and it looks so mid. It looks like you're leaving with no loot because you're conned by 16 teams. It looks like everyone's coming into third party you. It looks like you can never get the bot because, again, you're getting restored reels. You're getting Fredoxy split below. You're getting the splits are left of it keying you. Got Slurp Truck above you keying you. It feels like in EU, it doesn't work. It feels like teams are either too aggressive outside of Grimgate to just push in, and they're not scared of the whole Peter Bottom Polio thing where it's just the fear factor. And then it's not the Grimgate team is dominating. They're like Malabuka and Mustache came 75th, I'm pretty sure it was. And then what was it? Kidua or not? Kidua and Cheaton, I think, came 200th in round 4.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, Grimgate's maybe the most OP spot, and those are our two best teams coming 75th and 200th at Grimgate. What do you think is the main issue for that?
Yeah, that was actually. I'm glad you mentioned this now because we're probably gonna overrun of time, so we won't get. Because I had that as something I wanted to talk about when I was talking about the Duo Cash Cup stuff for another topic. I'm glad you bring it up now because that is something I was curious about to see what you guys had thoughts on. Why is it that Peter Bot and Pollo are phenomenal and it's just the easiest game in the world when they're landing there and they've got that coin? But some good EU teams, are landing there, and it's not that same level of dominance. Like, what is the difference here?
I think it's an easy answer, right? I think there's a couple of anomalies in this situation. Let's look at other regions, right? Just think about OCE, think about the small regions, Middle East, all this kind of stuff. You have such a massive disparity between the top to the bottom of people already, where you're gonna have a top team, they'll land there, and they'll beat any other team landing there. It doesn't really matter. If you look at NA, you have a real different type of anomaly where you have just two of the best fighters in the region teamed up together, full stop, right? Like maybe the two best fighters outside of Cold in there as well. I don't know, I'm not an NA connoisseur, but they're up there, right? Of course. And together as a fighting duo, they are just so much better than everyone else in the lobby. Add to that, everyone else, 50-50s, the drop spot on the chest. Not always, but for the most part. Fights over fast. It doesn't seem like there's 10 teams landing there. And then you say, okay, anyone surrounding that is scared to fight that fight. So they're not going to keep pushing in and third-partying like they do in EU. So that's why I think NA ends up being that way. Then they get the dash coin, they get all the loot, and they'll win a fight against anyone in that lobby. Like the people are fucking running away from them. That does not happen on any other region because it's like they just have that fighting skill and they can just outrun anyone. And then if you think about the way they're performing in that region as well, it's like they don't even have to be that smart with the coin because it's like, okay, we can just win a fight, get our loot back, get back in the game, go. Repeat. Bad positioning, we have a dash coin. Most other people don't have like as good mobility at all. So like when you look at how NA is doing to start with, you have a true anomaly of just two of the best fighters with everything given to them in order to succeed. Flip that onto EU and you have Malibu and Mustache, who are kind of shit off spawn to start with. Like almost never win more than 50% of their off spawns in any high level lobby. And then they usually do good out of those games. Slap on a bunch of other teams landing all around, not scared to fight, because why would you be scared to fight Malibu and Mustache off spawn with a bad track record? Then you add Fredoxy just being annoying, just third partying all the time from the split down south, and intentionally capitalizing on the fact that there's more and more players there going on, and you just have a mess. And then, okay, if they get the coin, are Malibu and Mustache great fighters? Absolutely. But do they have the ability to just wipe through a team like that, like they do in NA? No, that's just not the kind of team that they are. Obviously, they're great fighters and they can do that, but they're not incredible WKers that will finish a fight that quickly. They're aggressive, but they're not the Peter Bottom Poyo play style. So I think like you have every region in a slightly different way, but for different reasons, you know?
It's interesting what you mentioned there with like the people outside of, you know, once the Grimgate fight happens initially, right? The people that come in, right? Because in the Cash Cup that happened recently where Quanti was conning, when they'd win in the last couple, when they won, people would come in and fight, right? People don't do that when Peter Bot and Poyo are there because, like you're saying, like there's that fear factor of even with a mat imbalance, because the team that lands Grimgate and wins it, they're usually not going to have that many mats compared to people landing around, right? There's not like really fast mats you can get there, right? Unless you're like going on the outskirts to like farm rocks and shit. So like the fact that like people in EU will come in and it's like, okay, even if Manabukum and such have won, we will fight them because we're going to have more mats in them, right?
On NA, 500 wood, 500 brick each. Yeah, right? Fighting a guy with scraps, you know?
On NA though, it's like people know they will have more mats. And they're still like, nah, we ain't trying to fight.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous because, as you said, it's like Peter and Poyo, Peter and Poyo have shown how OP the spot is. They've shown what insane games you can get when you get the Grimgate coin. But the NA teams don't take that as, oh, we're now going to go fight them because, as you said, they have no mats. They're probably going to be not going to be scuffed on shield, but they might have been fighting, so they might be cracked. It takes a bit of time to kill the bot. It's not the quickest bot to kill. It doesn't take the longest, but it's not the quickest bot to kill. Teams don't take that as a, oh, we're going to go fight. It's like, this gives us more time to rotate away from Grimgate. This gives us more time to get as far away as possible. And it's like, I don't know if just EU has more egos and they are just willing to grief their game to get the best loot. And NA teams are more willing to just go, okay, we can still win with our loot or at least get second place with our loot. Why would we grief our game for the coin? I wonder if that's the case, or if it's just that Peter and Poyo are just that good that teams are that bad that they just don't want to fight at all.
It could be all three. Yeah.
Peter and Poyo also have been like trained by several different teams, deciding 1 week, all right, we're gonna con Grimgate. And then by the end of the 6 games of the Duo Cash Cup, they're like, all right, we're not going to con Grimgate. And like that has happened repeatedly. Like Acorn Cold tried and they got dumped on. And
they were awful. They were awful.
Back. But it seems like most people are 50-50ing Peter and Poyo, where like if you're not on a 50-50, that's going to be a total grief fest just because of how the POI is. And because they're able to win those fights quickly and then just key the heck out of people, they are so good with those dashes that I think they are the best fighting duo at the moment, especially given extra mobility and movement that nobody else in the lobby has unless you've just touched the water. So like they have this whole advantage where people are like, I don't want to deal with that. I have not practiced as much fighting people as Peter Butt has with this dash coin. I don't want to have to deal with it. Let me get out of here. And they can have it, right? They can just have it.
Mm-hmm. And I think what's one thing that Harry mentioned there that I think is really interesting was on, you know, egos in EU, right? And I think it's just the opposite. Like I don't. This might be a controversial take, but I don't think like a lot of people off spawn have a lot of ego in EU. I just don't think they care. Like, you know, you always see this stuff in NA where people like, I saw comments saying, oh, if Peter and Poyo came to EU, they just alpha someone off spawn. That just doesn't really happen in EU ever. And it's, if they just lose off spawn, they'll just keep going there. It's just like people just don't care, you know? It's like, so I think that's a continual effect we'll also see. Like these teams might just keep doing rubbish and just play that way for the rest of the season in the hope that they'll be unconned off spawn.
Yeah, it is. That is it with the EU. It's like, it's the lack of caring, which obviously a little bit of ego where it's like, we've got 6-0 3 times in a row in finals, but it doesn't matter because surely we can't be that bad for that long. Like, surely we get good enough at some point. Like, that's the thing. Is like, you ask any EU player or EU person about Pia and Poyo, they all say they can't be that good. Like, that's what you say. And it's like, they're like, there's no way, like, if they're fighting this player or this player, they just can't be that good. And you ask anyone from NA about Pia and Poyo, they're like, we can't compete. They are that good. And it's like, it's the difference. It's like, I feel like they're willing to just give up and play for the best they can. And EU is, as you said, they don't care. It's like they have the belief where it's like, there's no way they can be that good. It's impossible.
Yeah, it sort of reminds me, and here's another weird sort of analogy comparison for you guys.
Oh my God, here we go.
This one's less weird. It sort of reminds me, like in terms of the EU players just like banging their heads against the wall and continuing regardless. It reminds me of when I tried to play League of Legends. And what would happen with when I played League of Legends was that I was incredibly terrible, and I'd play like 4 games and get wiped, and it was just like hell. I'd have one game where the lane matchup is perfect for me, and I boss and I dominate the game, and I feel so good that it gives me this dopamine effect where I'm like, I must get this feeling again. And I imagine playing for the Queen is like that, right? Where like it's terrible to con Grimgate in EU, but the one game where you do get it and things go well and you have the Queen for that game, the game must feel so easy and free and good that you're like, well, it is just worth it to keep doing this. Like I might as well, you know, like that's how I feel like it probably is for a lot of these EU teams, which is why we're just continuously seeing them going at it, even in situations where it probably doesn't even make sense for them.
No, agree. It's like if you go from landing Grimgate and having the coin to landing some other split, you're just like you're putting every weight possible around your ankles to try and play the game. It's like, as you said, it's the easiest game of all time having the Grimgate coin. I think Kinch did a stat where it's the equivalent of having another 1,500 mats, 1,500 mats. It's the equivalent when you have the Grimgate coin. It's like, why would you give that up? And most teams, and I think I saw this as a tweet, it's like, if you could get 6 games out of 12 in the grand finals, or even 5 or even 4 games out of 12 in the grand finals with Grimgate coin, that's probably, and you get some surge or spawn, you're probably getting a better placement than any other spot.
That's what I said. That was what I said was as like the reasoning why somebody on NA should con Peter Mpoyo. Because it's like, as much as they did boss Acorn and Code, but I thought Acorn and Code like were like tragically bad. Like I didn't even think, like it didn't even feel like like they did not look like a team that had actually ever landed Grimgate before, to be completely honest with you. But like when they've been conned by Quanti and Chubbs, like, and I know the optics of it look bad when you look at how it went, but when you actually watched a lot of those or spawns, like I think it should have been even, if not. Like Quanti probably should have won more often.
Yeah, it should have
been. They did, right? Like in Loki should have been 4-2. And so to me, like again, if you can go 50-50 with them, like over the course of a 12-game grand finals, is 6 games with the coin enough to like have a very good tournament placement? I think yes. The problem is that we've had now though, is that what this has actually shown is that the respect that Peter Mpoyo have with coin doesn't extend, which is the only sort of like I think negative point against my point of like it's worth it for the 6 out of 12 games, because what we saw with Quanti was when they won, people just keyed them still. And they aren't as good of fighters to deal with that, right? So maybe it's a bit harder, but I still do think, man, 6 games with the coin in grands, like for most people, unless you're already a good team with a good spot that's uncon, I think for most people, like I'd take a shot at that, man. Like that seems like a worth it gamble for me. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if anyone takes it. I think we're gonna wrap up soon because of time. But the one ugly that I forgot to talk about, that we will talk about, and we'll save some other topics for another time. I can't believe I almost forgot this one. It was like the biggest one. The player counts discourse. I don't know how many of you guys saw the Syrian post about player counts dropping. I will get the tweet up because it was very interesting. It sparked a lot of conversation. Major 2 qualifiers player counts below are all the player counts for not duos that have played yesterday, and it showed just like a bunch of numbers of how many people are playing. Total 600k. This is a lot lower compared to last Major 1, which had way more players. So for EU, Major 1 had 865,000 players. This season, 300,000 queued up. That's a minus 62% drop. And it's basically the same across every region. So much so, and some of these actually look pretty weird in terms of like player base. So what I found weird is that OC had more players than Middle East and Asia. Again, weird stuff going on, but overall, a large drop in the amount of people playing FNCS this season. What are the thoughts of the panel?
The format. I think the fact that people basically came so quickly after the new season, the fact that the actual format doesn't mean that a lot of people can play for long periods or like for multiple weeks. I don't think the format is beneficial for the average player. I think it all mainly, in my eyes, comes down to the format. It could also come down to, the meta, no mobility, and no mobility metas a lot of the time do worse for the average player. But I think it just solely comes down to the format. I think if they have a better format, a little bit better marketing, and it feels more open and more worth to play for the average player, I think they'd see a higher player base.
Reese, you want to go?
Yeah, I think that's not true. I think the first thing is the actual player count of Fortnite as a whole on a baseline is down from, I just checked specifically there, from on that weekend or that day the qualifier was, it was like 4.1 million or something. I think that might be the Saturday, the day after or something. Now we're around like 2.7 million. So like you're already taking a massive chunk down. And the reality is that a reflection on competitive, or is that a reflection on the fact that OG was there, new chapter, there's hype to start with, people play the season, everyone's back into it, and then as the year goes on, it kind of just generally slowly goes down.
That's fair.
And then it comes back again, and then the cycle repeats over and over. So I think that number one is a big issue. The second part is that Xbox had a bunch of login issues that day. So there was a genuine, there was like a genuine, like a lot of Xbox players couldn't play. And if you've ever looked at like the percentage of people who play and are still on console, it's a lot. I can't remember if that was still active on the day of FNCS or not, but it was at least the day before. I think it was on the opens for FNCS. Could be incorrect on that. So I would be more interested to see this week's ones in Qualifier 2, which are usually a little bit lower. So if they're a little higher, I think that would probably be more based on the fact that there was maybe login issues as well. So if you think about like a 30% reduction in, what was I going to say, in player count total, that is in some regions reflected on. I think EU's lower because maybe that was the Xbox login issues. Not 100% though.
I'm going to also throw, I think it was just like a lack of promotion being thrown right into the next FNCS. Like we had globals and then OG season. Fortnite was super hype. Everything was going on. And then they promoted this next FNCS. You have the big blog post. You have the global championship announcement. You got all this stuff coming out from Fortnite itself. It's right in your face. If like you're somewhat a fan of Fortnite, you're going to see something. With this, it seems like it just snuck up on us. Even myself, I was like, oh, damn, FNCS is this weekend. And that was like last Monday. I barely even knew. They also changed the dates randomly. I don't know if anyone else realized that. There's supposed to be a 1 week gap. And then like a week before FNCS, they decided, nope, 2 week gap for some reason. Just anyway. But I think there should be a lot more promotion if they genuinely care to get more people going into this. They have to make the average person who's not going to seek out these tournaments, it needs to be right in front of their face. And using players, using footage, all this stuff could be done way better than like FNCS is tomorrow, who's playing, because we've all seen that tweet. I think they just put out something similar like an hour ago, which is just like such low effort for a game that has so much content where you could not even show like IRL footage. And Reese knows this. You could make a banger hype video from just replay mode and it would take you all of 1 day maybe. And we know they have the people to be able to do that kind of stuff.
I think they did do that actually. Because I remember, I think
there
do a hype
one,
video
right?
every one. Yeah.
But that's one for like the entirety of FNCS is one 1 week before hype video.
I think they did one for, was it? Oh, I think they did one for the announcement of it being in Dallas.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did they do one as well for this season?
They did. Okay. Because Nola did it.
That's a fair point though. Like I wonder how hard it would be for them. It sounds like not very hard to just make a hype trailer for each week, you know, like as in before the week of FNCS, like a hype trailer to like brush over the stuff that happened the week before. That might help with a lot of the storyline stuff we talked about earlier, about people keeping up with that. But
okay, so playing devil's advocate here, I don't know if that changes a minus 62% drop. Like that's still like that's still like a lot of people. And again, and on this line of playing devil's advocate, cool. I think it's clear because I actually saw, before I saw this hearing, I'd seen tweets from like the casual fan base of like, way less people playing Fortnite, like what's going on type shit. My sort of point to that would be, wasn't one of the things we always said about competitive, which was where we said held a lot of value as a community, was, hey, look, comp is something sticky. Comp keeps people around, comp keeps people playing. So yes, player count in general might be down, but if the same percentage that the player count is down is also represented in how much, you know, comp players there are, then is comp as sticky as we think it is? Because surely you'd still expect some like relatively high comp numbers, because of all those players that are leaving, right? A lot of those would have been comp players, right? But you know, I thought we take pride in the fact that we keep people around, right? That's why comp is so valuable, because it keeps people playing for long. But that's not happening. So is that something to be, you know, worried about? And I think that's what plays into what Harry was saying. That's why I do low-key agree with what you were saying, Harry, about format. I think if FNCS Major 1 was more enjoyable to play for like most casuals, we would have had more people stick around to play the next FNTS. But the format not being too great, it only being like 2 weeks to qualify. Like after 2 weeks, FNCS is just done for the majority of the player base. It's like, why would you then come back around for the next one? Yeah. Even if you've not been playing much, you know, Fortnite in general because of school and natural drop anyway.
Yeah, I agree. I think, as you said, like, on the whole, like, you know, said about the whole Grimgate thing about getting the coin, how the dopamine, it's the same thing about getting close to qualifying. If you only get 2 chances of that, a lot of players aren't going to get that feeling of, oh, we were actually really close to qualifying, we've got it next week, or we've got it next FNCS. It's like, you play 1 week, you do bad, you play the next week, maybe it doesn't go right for you, or maybe you don't have a duo, and then it's like, now I've got to wait 2 months to play again. It's like, I'm a huge believer that I do think we need to bring back 4-week FNCS, maybe less rounds 4-week FNCS. I think it was the best, most competitive, most fun for the average player because they have so many chances to qualify. I'm a huge believer of that, and that's why I was saying about the format, that I'm just thinking from my perspective and from my chats, it's like, I know after Friday, a lot of people are going to just stop playing Fortnite again, because like, why do I play for some solo victory cups and a duo cash cup?
Yeah, there's definitely a reason. I hope, regardless that well, I know they're looking for feedback on FNCS regardless. I hope more qualification weeks come in. It's like, you know, the trend that we've been seeing in solo victory cups is like opening up the thresholds of qualifying. And I think if you have 4 rounds, you know, having a large percentage of the population just play round 1 and not like round 2, you know, I think would make sense. Also, that would potentially open up the awkwardness of going from round 2 to round 3, where it's like you just got to come in the top 50%. And maybe that's boring for the pros because they're just going to wipe another lobby. But it's boring for the pros already. So maybe you just open it up to have more people play, more weeks. I do think 2-week qualifiers are some of the worst decisions we've seen, especially because, like, I mean, if it was me, I would have some sort of circuit each season where the cash cups are involved and they're part of the qualifiers. You know, like the Elite Cup system was looking to be however long ago that was. And you have a whole season system that somehow ties into making it to semis, or, you know.
I always felt the genius of, like, I know, you know, World Cup, people have their views. I know Epic have their own views on how World Cup went. But I always thought one of the genius of, like, World Cup and events around that time was the illusion that everybody had of, like, I actually can do something here, right? And that is very much, I think, lost now a lot of the time, where, like there's people who to this day, you probably ask them, like, oh, like, do you play the World Cup? And they're like, yeah, I played some World Cup qualifiers. And they're probably deluded enough to think, like, I could have been bigger. Like, I was close. Like, I was close to making one of the weeks, you know? Like, and to be fair, I also, you know, if I'm being critical of what I'm saying, I do remember looking back on the formats back then and thinking they were trash. So, you know, it's not an easy thing to do, but I do think that you almost need to find a balance of, like, how do we keep a lot of these people still interested and invested and give them that dopamine of feeling like they're close, which I think is something they've always been pretty good at, while, you know, still making a format that is rewarding, you know, at the very top level of competitive. So again, typical 11-2K, saying a problem, not giving a solution. But I do feel like that would help in terms of, like, the player base stuff. And a question I had to sort of link to this before we wrap up again. Do you think that when they bring back OG, you're actually going to be able to get people back in the same way you did last time?
Yeah.
People 100%. Are so set. I just think of when I was a kid playing games, like, there are very few people who, and this is why Fortnite is so unique. You have very few people when you're a kid growing up, you know, you go through a stage where you play FIFA, and then a few months later you play, you know, Call of Duty. A few months later you go through a Minecraft stage or whatever, right? When you're growing up. Very few games keep people for a year long, right? All it takes is one exciting update, and people are like, Oh, I'll play Fortnite for this month or for the next 2 months. That's all it takes. It's people, and most of the average player base for Fortnite, average age for the player base for Fortnite, they're not really people who just play one game over and over and over again. They can be playing one game and then they could get bored and play another game. You go through phases. So OG will just bring players back again. If it's OG's Chapter 1 or if it's Chapter 2 or if it's a mix of both or whatever it is, people are going to be excited to play it again. And it will have, as Reece said, we're going to have the exact same cycle. And as much as competitive players might get bored of it, it's going to be really easy for Fortnite to keep players coming back to the game now, because they always used to struggle with new chapters and new chapters being boring and new season updates being boring. Bring an OG season is literally just a push of a button and here comes 1 million players back into Fortnite, or here comes 2 million, 3 million, whatever. And it's just, and from what, if we're going off some leaks, obviously it sounds like they're going to do an FNCS style tournament in OG season. That's going to bring a lot of players into competitive, because OG season tournaments were awful to watch and to play, filled with cheaters and didn't even work. If they have a good FNCS format in OG, the amount of players who are going to play is ridiculous.
That is the thing that I think is most important as a competitive community. If we're going to ask them for anything, it's a good tournament during the OG repeat that they have this year, because I do feel like, again, it's like, it almost lagged behind a bit too much, where it's like, we came into a new chapter, there was a lot of hype, we had the FNCS, but it was like, if we had hype for comp during the peak of the OG, and that was like another big thing, again, it's like you hook people in, I think, a lot more. It's funny because I've seen this with your chat, Harry, and so I know you have this firsthand. When you ask people in your chat, like, oh, how many of you guys like have started playing the game recently again? Like, what brought you guys back to playing comp Fortnite? OG. So there's already a large amount of people who are invested in comp on a daily basis now who only came back because of OG, and that will happen again.
Yeah.
But I feel like we can do more to convert even more people in and bring even more people in and have them stick in to keep them going. I think that's really important.
I agree. And I think the power of nostalgia cannot be undermined as much, right? Yeah. See this. Pokemon Ruby, this 2003.
What a game.
On this
SSB.
I'm still playing this 21 years later after I got it.
We're going to have an OG FNCS. It's 2040. We're going to have an OG FNCS.
Boys, we're going to get back together in 21 years and we'll see if OG is still going strong, of course.
I will make top UK in 2040, I hope.
Jeez.
And I think, like, one of the interesting things about nostalgia is that, like, if there's a limited window of opportunity for it, which there will be, a month, maybe 2, however long it'll be, people will come back and play that. Now, do I think it'll reach the same peak? I don't know, because that initial nostalgia was a massive gap. Yeah, it'll wear off, but I definitely think it'll have. And imagine this: you go from, it's almost set up so perfectly, FNCS Global Championship, big boom, big hype. You promo that next season, FNCS Chaos or whatever it was called in the leak or whatever. And then you get OG season. Then you go straight into a new chapter. That's like 4 months from that, like, start to finish, that cycle of like massive hype. And then if you can continue that into the hype of qualifying for globals the next year, you just have like a full yearly cycle of super interesting news, super good stuff coming back and forth. So I hope they do good. And I definitely think it will bring back a lot of other players. And we're obviously talking as if it's all doom and gloom. There's still 3-4 million people playing Fortnite every day, which is madness. But I think every year there is a downward trend. And in particular in the 3rd season, like, that's always what I've seen is as the year goes on, the chapter goes, it just, the hype goes down a little and then it repeats again and it just goes forward, back and back.
No, that's true. I thought this was an interesting comment. What makes OG so good is not the loot, not the tournament. It was the friends.
Oh,
damn, that's powerful.
Oh, wow.
That's powerful, man.
That's true.
I mean, on a personal level, I think that holds true for me. Like, the funnest part of OG was, yes, it was great to go back, but the people I was playing with was my actual OG friends I used to play with. Like,
same, man.
That's what was like the beauty of it for me. So no, I definitely think that's a great point. Is there so I guess the question would be, again, going back to what the initial point was, are there any concerns around the the lack of player count, or not? You guys aren't too worried about it?
No, I
Not
don't
at
think
the
so.
moment. Not at the moment.
600,000
No.
people, still a ton of people playing a tournament. Like I think
Yeah.
we're just like spoiled by last season. I don't think there's really any concern. I'm interested to see if the viewership numbers are as high as last season. I have my own thoughts on why they were so high last season, but that's a whole nother conversation.
View bots.
Which
Yes, that's exactly why.
yeah, which we don't have time to get into, because we're gonna wrap up the episode here. Thank you all for hanging out. If you've been watching live, if you're watching this right now on Apple, Spotify, on YouTube after the fact, I appreciate you as well. And remember, you can now, right? So for the people watching live, if you joined maybe halfway through, you missed any of this, it will be up straight on YouTube, so you can watch it straight away. I will have it on Spotify and Apple as well tonight, so it will be available to watch and listen to on those platforms. Next week's show, we will be live on twitch.tv/coach_Harry. That's your Twitch, right, Harry?
Coach_Harry, yep.
Coach_Harry. So we'll be watching it live there. If you want to watch it live, you can also watch it on the YouTube at 11-2K TV. Any final words from the guys before we wrap up? Where can people find you? What you guys going to be up to in the next week or so for the people to tap in with you guys?
Resub done. Go watch me videos.
Yep. Coach_Harry tomorrow. FNCS prep. Get all your information before FNCS tomorrow.
Somebody's gone everywhere.
Big up some of these guys, man. Thank you for stepping in this week. Someone's gonna hope to have you again soon. And for bringing some NA-ness to the show. It was very, very much needed.
It's based NA though. It wasn't argumentative NA.
True. Who can offer argumentative NA? We got to bring up maybe Panda or something. I'm sure he'll start ranting about some nonsense. We love Panda though. Anyway, yeah, thank you guys all for watching. Hope you guys all have a lovely day, and we will see you. It is perfectly 2 hours and 30 on the dot. Goodbye. Let's go.